What exactly happened? The psychologist's relatively simple question had forced the two siblings, 19-year-old twins Luca and Olivia, to face a problem they had been avoiding for a long time. The simple words were so incisive that they cut right to the core of their problems, their upbringing. Luca, who was already rattled by this question, looked around the room feeling heartbroken. Olivia on the other hand continued staring into nothingness with her eyes wide open. Feeling the uneasiness in the room, the psychologist, Dr. Hardwell, handed water to both his patients with a trusting smile. Luca wondered deep inside how a session aimed at the siblings' anxiety and anger issues was linked to such a remote thing. Olivia on the other hand, held the water glass with her sweaty palms and took huge anxious gulps. "Well," Olivia said in a weak voice, "our childhood was not exactly what you would imagine." The therapist nodded at this development. "We weren't even given the bare minimum and our rights were violated on so many other levels, as if our existence was a burden to the system. We never left the confines of our isolated trailer except to go to school and back. We—" Olivia stopped mid-sentence as if she had lost the courage to relive her past. Dr. Hardwell turned his head slightly towards Luca as a signal for him to speak. Luca, who saw tears sliding down his sister's cheeks, mustered the courage to add something. "What my sister means is that we weren't even given a proper shelter. Our parents forced us to sleep in dog crates. Our living environment was something you put prisoners in." Luca was livid by this time, saliva spitting out of his mouth. "We wanted a normal life. We wanted to hang out with our school friends, but our parents thought it was going to corrupt us somehow. They had imagined that we might sleep around or get involved in other immoral activities, so we never left the isolated trailer." Luca said all of this so quickly as if he wanted to share more. "You know what? We never even got a good meal without paying a price for it. Like they would either force us to rob, steal or kill innocent animals. All of this for what?" Luca stopped as if he had remembered something overwhelming. "You are doing well, young man," Dr. Hardwell said, to encourage him to speak more. "One rainy day, I had a fever and couldn't go to the forest to kill wildlife as my father demanded. I came back empty-handed, and my father forced me to sleep outside the trailer in the heavy rain." Luca broke down and tears started running down his cheeks. "That day, I had a feeling I might die. I cried and pleaded to my father to let me in, but it was futile. How could he do this to his own children?" Luca asked. Olivia held her brother's hand firmly and stroked his face affectionately. Dr. Hardwell, feeling that the initial barrier of mistrust had been broken, took a few seconds to say, "What you two had gone through was very unfortunate, but you did the right thing to come here. Ignoring a problem doesn't mean that it ceases to exist, it is there waiting to be dealt with. You have taken the hardest step and whatever now follows is easy and natural." The two teenagers were drowned deep in their feelings of sadness as they rode the train back to their trailer. "Did you remember the suffering that happened to us?" Olivia said in a low voice as Luca kept staring out the window. "Yes," Luca replied as he turned towards Olivia. "I just feel like I can't take it anymore," he said. Olivia's eyes were filled with fear and anxiety as she said in a croaked voice, "I don't want to get hurt anymore." Luca and Olivia sat there feeling sorry for themselves as the train rushed towards its destination. They were remembering their dark past and cast their memories back to that time. In the past, when they wanted to escape from the daily torture and fighting, the two teenagers would run away from the trailer to hide. One such day, they were hiding in a nearby empty barn in a dark corner. "I wish we had friends," Olivia said in a longing tone. Luca nodded his head in agreement as he wished for the same thing. "But the good thing is we have each other," Luca said in a playful tone as he tickled Olivia on her bare stomach. Olivia laughed as she reached out for Luca's arms. They started touching and noticing each other's body, until Luca accidentally brushed Olivia's breasts. They both started to get excited and decided to see more of each other but were both nervous. "You should go first," Luca said to Olivia, but she shyly asked her brother to go first. "Okay. I will go first but don't tell anyone," said Luca. Olivia laughed and nodded in agreement. He took off his pants and showed his penis to her. "Nice," she said. "Okay, your turn now," said Luca. Olivia took off her shirt, revealing her bra. She slipped off her bra and her nipples were visible as Luca approached them. They both laughed as they found relief from the pain they were experiencing. He was about to touch Olivia's breasts when they heard someone approaching the barn and both quickly ran towards the trailer. Later that night, Luca woke up and slid quietly into Olivia's bed. Olivia was startled by this and was immediately silenced by Luca touching her soft lips. He moved his head slowly, hearing Olivia breathe, and reached out to slowly kiss her. Olivia lay on her bed as she closed her arms around Luca's back. He reached out to her thighs and grabbed them firmly, as Olivia slid down to kiss his neck. The two passionately made love and discovered each other's body with enthusiasm. After making love, they lay in the bed for a while, finding relief and love in each other's company. This was the beginning of their physical relationship. After that they would hide in the forest, trailer and other places to kiss and make love. They would watch movies together and imitate the actors making love. Their youthful exuberance was blooming as they fell deeper and deeper in love. Luca would often go to the forest to cut trees. One such day when Luca was returning to the trailer from the forest, he saw his father beating up his sister for going out with her friends. Luca couldn't take it this time as he now loved Olivia romantically, not just as a sister. He rushed towards his father, pushed him back and screamed at him not to hit her again. Though surprised by this reaction, his father retaliated with force and punched Luca. He fell unconscious for a few seconds and woke to see his sister bleeding from her father's punches. Luca mustered all his courage, stood up and punched his father hard and fast full in the face. His father's head struck a wooden edge as he fell and blood started gushing. Shocked to see their father bleeding from a huge cut, Luca and Olivia didn't know what to do. They started trembling as their mother was woken by the loud falling thud of her husband. Their mother's eyes opened wide and her mouth gasped for breath as she saw her husband lying dead covered in blood. The mother put her hand on the wall for support, as she slowly lost balance and fell onto the ground. Olivia rushed towards her mother and checked her pulse. "She is dead too," her voice a mixture of fear and anxiety. They both started crying, feeling both guilt and sadness. The two siblings finally got the courage to drag the bodies to the trailer. 2 hours after the accident. But it was not long before the bodies started stinking and they had to think of something else. "I feel like it's time to bury them and put an end to this chapter," Luca said with a noticeable authority. Thus, the two siblings under the cover of darkness dragged the bodies deep inside the forest and buried them. They sat there thinking over what had happened as the nocturnal animals sang. They then returned with their awareness of the present on the train while their tears were hidden. In the present, there was a large pearly pool in the neighborhood near the trailer. The siblings always felt peaceful while swimming there. As they returned to the trailer, they decided to go swimming together and wash off their sorrow in the pool's water. They soon reached the pool. Olivia carelessly took off her beautiful white shirt and short jeans. Her smooth skin, which previously had been covered with youthful clothes, now shone with a clear radiance. She was almost naked. Only her large bra covered her full breasts and cute panties highlighted her legs. Luca followed the lead of his sister and impatiently got rid of his shorts while staring at Olivia as she slowly approached the pool. She stood there for a second, hesitated to make a move but soon made up her mind and gently put her toes in the cold water. "God, help me to endure coldness," Olivia shouted joyfully, summoning the Creator to save her from being frozen. Luca smiled as he looked at Olivia's shivering body and shouted, "Wait for me." He ran to hold hands with his sister and they started counting together, 1, 2, 3. They jumped into the cold water screaming, but soon their screams turned into laughter. The water almost fully covered their bodies, but it was so clear you could easily see what was underneath. Olivia looked so stunning while shaking in the cold water that Luca could barely resist the temptation to wrap her in his arms. As his sister was moving her beautiful, smooth and shiny skin, he couldn't stop staring at her. They were playing around in the pool, trying to outswim and splash each other. Water noisily poured outside of the pool and camouflaged the sounds they made while feeling each other in water. "I can teach you how to swim on your back. Do you want it?" Luca offered confidently, feeling the perks of his masculinity. "I don't know," she lied. Olivia already knew how to swim on her back, but she innocently tried to find a reason to be touched by her brother again and again. "Come to me," said Luca and smiled with satisfaction. He opened his hands in the water and let Olivia lay on his hands. She was floating on water while Luca led her body with his hands. "You've got my back." She closed her eyes and whispered. They were so close to each other. They had no one else in the world, no one but each other, and that was enough. In fact, at that time it seemed to be the only thing they needed. "I dare you to lift me up," Olivia shouted playfully. Luca quickly grabbed her waist and lifted her, as his sister wrapped her legs around his waist. Their bodies were pressed against each other. For a second they forgot the neighborhood, they forgot the outside world. The only thing they remembered was the heat they felt in the cold water, the heat coming out of their desire. Soon they got tired of swimming and Olivia decided to leave the pool. She swam near the handrail, looked at Luca playfully, got out of the pool and started dancing right away. She danced slowly with the natural, graceful movements. Luca kept watching every movement of his sister, and Olivia felt his eyes even without looking back, and she started to take off her bra. Luca came to his senses. What if there was someone nearby? He looked around and carefully told his sister, "Be quiet, we do not want anyone to see us." As his half-naked sister was standing in front of him, Luca couldn't stay in the pool any longer. He jumped out of the pool and slowly approached Olivia to wrap her in his arms. "Hug me," said Luca while turning her around. Olivia put her hands on Luca's neck and he felt the touch of her big, soft breasts. He didn't want this moment to end, he wanted to hug her tighter and tighter. No, he couldn't resist her touch. He leaned up against her and kissed the corner of her lip. His erect penis could barely stay in his shorts. Olivia felt it. Out of the passion and desire she felt weak in her knees and asked Luca to sit down. "I love touching your soft skin and beautiful breasts. Out of all the women, yours is the most beautiful," he mumbled. "What do you like in me?" "I like your eyes, smile, shoulders and," said Olivia shyly but couldn't finish the sentence. She blushed. "And what?" He tried to encourage her to tell him what she was thinking. "Your penis. When you hug me, it touches my stomach and I feel wet between my legs." Lucas smiled, got up, hugged his sister again and whispered, "Do you like it? Get out of there, sinners." An old man's shaky voice disturbed the peace in the air. The two siblings had to come back to reality. Someone had noticed them. What could they do? That old man was one of the most religious temple pioneers and he would tell everyone what he had seen. They had to run. "I know who you are. Brother and a sister. God damn you." He kept shouting loudly and the two siblings fled back to the trailer. It was their trailer, the only place in the world where they could find peace of mind and run from the malice of human nature. People set the rules and if you do not follow, they deem you a pervert, they reject and ostracize you. Olivia said. "Why is our love so looked down on? Why are we chaste and cut out from the rest of the society?" Yearning thoughts roamed in Olivia's mind. "Don't worry about that. Do you remember the first time we felt we were different?" Luca asked and didn't wait for the answer as he continued. "We were so young. We kissed each other under the table and tried not to get caught by our parents. We would run in the woods and I fumbled with your body even before I knew what to do. I always wanted you. We were meant to be together. Now we do not need to hide from them anymore. They cannot catch us. Anything we want, we can do," Luca said as he reached closer and closer to Olivia. She was his sister but Luca wanted more. He wanted the forbidden fruit, he wanted all of her love for him. Olivia stood in front of the wardrobe trying to find a towel, she was so pure and beautiful. Suddenly she felt his touch from behind. "Can I kiss you here?" he said with an impassioned voice behind her ears, and she felt a gentle touch of his lips on her neck. The touch slowly went down, followed the trail of her spine, and now she was being kissed on her back, and after a short pause, she felt the wet, passionate kiss on her bottom. Olivia turned back. "Let's shower together," she said, smiling, and her brother followed. They started kissing each other while in the bathtub and bathing each other gently. "I cannot control myself anymore, let me do this," Luca said in a low, breathless voice. He pressed his sister against the bathroom wall and started kissing her lips, ears, her full breasts. Olivia kissed back as she gripped his waist and pulled him closer to her. The touch of his chest and hard penis made her give in. Out of the excessive passion, her vagina started aching, as it always did when she wanted to feel his penis deep inside her. "I want you, brother," she said in almost noiseless voice while kissing his lips. They couldn't stop anymore. Luca felt all his blood run down to his crotch, and the only thing he could do was to follow his instinct. There was his naked sister in front of him, and she was begging for sex. She wanted him. His sister wanted his penis inside her. There's not a better bond than the bond of a sister and a brother. Out of all the mating, that's the holiest of all, the mating of siblings. Olivia opened her legs to feel her brother's penis better in front of her vagina. It felt heavenly, amazing. Luca quickly ended up inside his sister. "It hurt a bit," she moaned quietly. Luca felt the wet warmness of his sister's vagina surrounding his penis. It was so safe and welcoming. He kept thrusting, faster and faster. Olivia couldn't silence her moans anymore. They moved in rhythm with each other's bodies. The harder Luca pushed, the harder she moaned, until suddenly she felt the warm fluid pouring inside her along with Luca's wild shout. He ejaculated. Now his white sperm was pouring from Olivia's body, mixing in with the bath water. Exhausted as they were, the siblings went to bed, hugging and kissing each other. "You are the best thing I've got in my life. I don't want to ever lose you," said Olivia, and put her head on Luca's chest. "I will always be by your side," answered Luca, and closed his eyes. A few hours later, Olivia woke up feeling something pleasurable. She opened her eyes and saw her brother was kissing her vagina. "I wanted you to have sweet dreams," was the answer on Olivia's surprised look as he sat back. "I know a better way to have sweet dreams," said sister playfully, and continued, "Can I sit on your lap?" Luca nodded. His penis got hard again as Olivia moved close to him and sat right on his penis and hugged her brother's neck. They were interwoven, looking into each other's eyes, kissing lips and pressing their chests together as Olivia moved up and down. They climaxed together. "Do not take it out, I want to sleep with you inside me," whispered Olivia. That night the siblings slept in each other's arms, dreaming about each other, and the next morning when they woke up, they already knew, it was love. They loved each other the way a man loves a woman, and the way a sister loves a brother, with an all-embracing love. As the days went by, they felt happier. Their trailer was sunk deep in the green tranquility near the forest. The sky was peaceful and serene, and they could enjoy the starry nights without being disturbed by any outsiders. The brown trail emerged with the colors in the forest. To the untrained eye it seemed like a mirage, almost as if this old trailer had been there for years and became an undividable part of the nature. The tall, proud mountains and old trees were the only protectors for the two siblings. They stood tall between the people and the siblings. These high mountains and green hills were the border of their world, full of dreams, love and bliss. Olivia and Luca almost forgot about the bad times they'd had before starting their happy lives. They would wake up every morning and do their best to help each other to enjoy the day with their eyes shining brightly. The days when they felt scared and terrified had passed. One summer day a neighboring hunter passed by their trailer and saw the two siblings, as they were hanging out washed clothes on the rope, kissing each other. He went back and told his wife. His wife told her friends, and soon, the inhabitants of the neighboring trailers and whole neighborhood became aware of the two siblings' immoral life. "I knew their mom. How could they do this to the name of their family?" Said one of the old ladies, as the second one answered. "Disgusting. Sister and brother. Don't even want to imagine the sick things they do." I hope they will soon become the meal for the wild cats or other stray animals. They do not deserve to live. There are a lot of stray cats, wolves and jackals in the woods. My husband John said you can even find bears in those mountains. Good for us and bad for them. They were gossiping and laughing, hoping that the two siblings won't have a long time to live. As they judged the two siblings' way of life, one of the middle-aged women suggested, "Let's gather together, call everyone from the neighboring trailers and houses and visit those 6 siblings. Their life is a danger to all of us, our kids will see what they are doing. They cannot live. Let's stone them to death." The neighbors thought of many ways to torture the two siblings. The evil happiness in their eyes showed there was no humanity left in their existence. They laughed like criminals, it gave them pleasure to imagine how others could suffer. These people didn't have their own lives and felt the sadness and anger when they saw someone else having the contentment they had always dreamed of. Some might call them evil, but the truth is, they were just miserable, stripped off of every kind of happiness or kindness. Only one old man stood there and shook his head while hearing the evil plan of the neighborhood. Human doesn't have to be scared of wildlife and stray animals. The biggest danger for them is not a wolf or a jackal, but other humans. A jackal would never hurt us the way human beings can. Poor kids. God bless them, he thought as he lit up his cigarette. The siblings had less and less things to care about. Their sorrows and heartbreaks had become the part of the past. Now they had normal, everyday worries, like, what do we do today? How do we have fun today? What are we eating today? It was one of the days like this, with less worries and more naughtiness. They were hungry. "I am so hungry. I'm starving," said Olivia and pictured huge burger in front of her. "When I am hungry, there's no stopping me. I want to feel a perfectly grilled steak in my mouth. God, I can even imagine moving my tongue in it." Sighed Luca as his mouth was almost covered in dribble. "I could kill for pizza, now." Olivia laughed and continued. "Nope, burger. Or no. Let me think, French fries. I want everything." Suddenly someone knocked on the door of the trailer. "I'll get it," Olivia shouted and ran to the door. "Who is it?" Luca asked as he saw the surprised and happy look on his sister's face. "I am sorry, I overheard you talking about the food you were dreaming about and here I am. I brought some grilled burgers, French fries and soft drinks. Will you let me in?" An old friend of the siblings stood at the entrance door smiling. "What? Oh man, you came just on time. Come in, Alex." Alex was an old friend. They always liked playing and hanging out together. He was one of the rare people who they trusted. They were always happy to see him, but today he had hit exactly the right spot and arrived just at the right time. Olivia and Luca were more than happy to see and welcome him. "Do you remember when we were chased by the dogs of our neighbors' dogs?" Luke laughed, asking Alex. "How could I forget? I even remember when we left our homes and got lost in the forest until our parents found us and took us back. That was crazy." Olivia was gasping for breath. They sat at the table as Alex said, "I brought you food." "What?" Luca replied angrily. "What do you mean? Do you mean that we are poor and we need your food?" Alex got confused as he stuttered, "I just mean, I brought food to eat together." Olivia intervened, "He didn't mean that, Luca, let's just enjoy the evening. He is an educated man who can respond to me." "What do you mean, Alex? Why did you bring food?" Luca asked firmly. Alex was terrified and looked shocked as he said, No, nothing. Everyone was silent and tension filled the air until Luca suddenly hit his hand on the table, laughing and saying, "I got you." And they all laughed. All three of them were laughing, slapping each other's backs when they heard a strange sound. "What was that, a fart?" Olivia asked naughtily. "Who was it?" Luca was laughing even harder. "Not me," Olivia said, trying to hide her embarrassment. "Stop lying, bad girl, it was you. I smelled it from you." Luca wasn't going to give in. There was one more sound and it definitely came from Olivia. "This time it really was you." Alex exclaimed, laughing hard. No, it was not me. Olivia was being a stubborn girl. There was the one last very loud noise and she couldn't deny it anymore. Okay, this time it was me. She laughed hysterically. They had a fun day, full of laughter and joking. Finally, the siblings had met someone they felt happy with. Delicious! Olivia exclaimed, and the dinner was finally over. All three of them were delighted and pleased, but the girl was enjoying it the most. She couldn't stop sucking her fingers, trying to recreate the taste of the meal in her mouth. Her eyes looked so sweet and innocent that the boys found it really hard to avoid intrusive thoughts and excitement. Especially Alex. He couldn't hide his smirk while looking at her. We can play cards. The brother yelled out enthusiastically, trying to fill the awkward silence that was sometimes disturbed by the lip-smacking sounds made by Olivia. Poker would be the best choice, noted Alex, and the siblings agreed with him. Soon they all sat down around the table and started playing. Poker is one of the smartest games out there. Poker players need an outstanding mind and knowledge of psychology. That's the only way to win. Luca said smugly. I've heard that drinking tea after dinner can help to open your mind. Olivia added with a smile. Bad girl. I know you want a cup of tea. I'll bring it for you. Luca headed to the small kitchenette of the trailer. He wanted to please his sister and guest and let them taste the flavor of the tea. It had been an hour since they dined. Tea would help them to focus. Luca, come back soon. We are missing you. She called her brother and blushed. I'm on my way. Luca brought a tray with 3 cups of tea and they kept playing. They had been playing for hours. Straight flush. 4 of a kind. Flush. You could hear the words and phrases, sometimes cheering the victory and sometimes echoing with disappointment. All in. Alex uttered in a serious voice. Fold. Olivia gave up. Luca followed and played to the end. He had good hand. Let's see what you've got. Olivia was excited and impatient. Straight, Luca said confidently. Full house. Alex laughed happily as he won. I won. You should grant me a wish. What's your wish? Luca laughed. Don't ask me to jump in river, it is cold and it's midnight. No, nothing like this. You, guys, owe me the chance to stay with you in the trailer tonight. The siblings were more than happy to be able to spend one more night with their friend. They celebrated lots. Olivia was so excited she cried out loudly, yes, yes, yes. And she hugged Alex with an innocent friendly hug. I'm so happy and excited she couldn't hide her positive mood. They were not lonely anymore. At night all of them sat in front of TV and watched some fun and adventurous movies. Olivia was lying on her belly carelessly, shaking her feet innocently. She was happy and felt protected. There were 2 men who could protect her. She could forget her fears and relax. What a wonderful night it was. Olivia walked around the trailer carelessly. She didn't mind the presence of 2 young men around her. She felt free and didn't have any hang-ups. You could see the easy manners and light-heartedness of the young woman in her every step. As she moved, her short jeans and shirt rolled up and down, exposing her midriff and tiny waist. Probably every girl in the world dreamed to have a waist like hers. She was blessed and lucky, but she never gave a thought about it. She enjoyed lying on the floor and tried to warm her hands with the hot cup of tea. Her butt was stuck up in the air every time she sipped her tea. Boys were staring at her round ass as she swayed her feet innocently and enjoyed her cup of tea. Alex watched Olivia's body closely. He tried to learn every curve of her body, each tiny characteristic. He watched how Olivia's tiny waist grew into the dimples of Venus. Her hips were so well-rounded and yet slim. Alex enjoyed this beautiful view as Luca flipped through the TV channels. Do we have souls or just a brain? Luca suddenly asked and started thinking. Huh? Alex muttered and reluctantly moved his eyes away from Olivia. Sometimes I wonder, what makes a human? Are we just junk made of body and brain, or is there something more beautiful in all of us? Luca was in a philosophical mood. I have thought about that too. Is mind the same as the brain? There's no final answer, my friend. I think it is all about your feelings. Mind is how we think and soul is our deepest nature. Some people die without knowing their soul. Alex answered. Yeah. Such a pity. I guess you're right, Alex, but what if there's no such thing as soul, but just a mind? My mind is my soul. If soul had a home place, it would probably live in our minds. That's why I believe in this. While the boys argued, Olivia turned around on the floor and shuffled her body, accidentally exposing the side part of her firm breast. Both of the boys froze and they stopped arguing immediately. As if philosophy stops at the sight of a woman's body. Olivia noticed their reaction and scooted her ass up onto public display. She wanted to tease them. She finished drinking her cup of tea and set it aside to join the boys and enjoy watching TV along with them. She checked from the corner of her eyes and found out the boys were still staring at her body instead of watching TV. She felt confident and happy to know that she could totally blow the minds of two young men. They looked at her so impressed that they totally forgot their philosophical discussion, TV, or even each other. Olivia realized how much power she held over them, and surprisingly for her, she felt flattered and pleased. It's good to be the only girl in the presence of handsome boys, she thought, and was happy to see that there was no one else to share the attention of the guys. She was the only one and their whole attention was directed to her. All girls love moments like this and she was no exception. Olivia adored it. It was a magnificent night for the young souls. The night was tender and the trailer was full of joy. Olivia laid on the beige rug, whose rough material made her skin red. Boys enjoyed watching TV, but sometimes they got distracted and glanced at Olivia's young and beautiful form. Suddenly Olivia farted. It was not a subtle fart. She farted very loudly. It was impossible not to hear it. Oops! She exclaimed, I am joking again. Come on, boys. Admit it, you like the smell. She laughed naughtily. Again? Alex and Luca shouted accusingly together. Let's open the window. Please. We'll die if you keep doing this. Luca went to the window. Thank God. We can breathe some fresh air now at last, said Alex, wanting to tease Olivia. Boys sat down and carried on watching TV. The open window brought the cozy forest sounds and the clean air inside the trailer. A tiny mouse also found its way and managed to sneak in the trailer through the open window. It scuttled around the boys, but they didn't notice. Olivia was also fully lost in her thoughts until suddenly she felt a stabbing pain around in her ass. But didn't see the little grey mouse running away from her. The mouse managed to escape, but Olivia cried out in pain, help! Something bit me. My ass. It hurts. Boys ran to help her, but the mouse was gone and they couldn't see anything. What happened? Show me. Alex was concerned. Don't worry, Olivia. Hope it doesn't hurt too much. Luca tried to calm her down. I'm hurt. Olivia rolled her eyes, hoping she would see what caused her pain, but she couldn't see anything. Olivia's butt hurt and she groaned with despair and displeasure. It was obvious she was in pain. Thankfully the mouse was obviously long gone. Soon she decided to take off her short jeans. She took off her jeans to the middle of it just to check what happened to her ass. Her brother Luca was confused, and their friend Alex was astonished and nervous at seeing her half-naked ass. And they both said, they are slightly shocked. What are you doing? Why are you stripping off? Can't you see us sitting here with you? Olivia shouted at them, angrily, shut up. I want to see what happened to my ass. It looks reddish, must be a mosquito bite. Alex concluded after looking at the bite on Olivia's butt. No way. It is not itchy at all. Olivia responded. Maybe a wasp. Alex still thought it was an insect. I don't think so. I have a feeling this must be an animal bite. What makes you think so? Olivia got scared. The smell of your fart, miss. I bet that's an animal bite. Oh. Olivia screamed, half in pain and half in fear. It hurts. I am in such pain. Olivia looked anxious and the boys decided to take off the rest of her short jeans completely while she relaxed lying down on her belly with her face away from Luca and Alex. Her ass was completely naked. The restless and powerful male hormones arose in the boys while they looked at her bare ass. Do not get me wrong bro, but I have to admit her ass looks fantastic. Look at those beautiful buttocks. Alex whispered hesitantly. Man. I would break all the chairs in the trailer just so she could sit on my lap. Luca thought to himself. They look like bubbles? Don't they? Luca whispered proudly. Damn. She looks like out of this world. Beautiful. You are a lucky man to have a sister like this. Alex smiled. Anyway, Luca, do not worry, I believe this is just a simple bite, not a big problem. We don't know yet. Luca looked concerned and went to bring ice cubes from the refrigerator. He wanted to ease his sister's pain and decided to put the ice cubes on the painful spot of her ass. He also tried to calm Olivia. Do not worry my pretty girl. You'll be okay. We will take care of you. You are not alone here. He patted her head and came back to Alex. Alex was still staring at Olivia's ass. She's so white. Even though her butt cheeks are a bit pinkish. How can you stand living with her and not touching her? Alex whispered. Stop talking man. Let's just enjoy the view. Her buttocks are so soft. Big. Mushy, Luca whispered. Squashy. Alex whispered. We are poets and we didn't know it. Luca joked and both of them laughed as they kept commenting and whispering about her ass. Suddenly Olivia changed her position giving a wondrous view. Her bare ass was on complete display. She was lying down on her belly, with her big, soft ass raised up like a hill. The tiny gutter divided the white buttocks and every time she moved a bit her ass quivered like a big slice of white jelly. As soon as Alex caught a glance of this view, he couldn't control himself and covered the front of his pants to hide his erected penis. Luca also got hard. He also tried to hide it. While the boys fought with their primal instincts, Olivia was innocently relaxed. She had put her head on her arms like a sweet naive girl and had no idea what kind of anticipated curiosity and hidden desires lurked in the minds of her brother and his friend. The boys became nervous as they looked at Olivia's ass. Let's touch her ass and play with it. Luca whispered to Alex. Alex was surprised by Luca's reaction. Are you sure that's your sister? He whispered to Luca. This is normal. We are friends and we are not strangers to each other. Let's play with her. Luca whispered. They were looking at her big white ass, while they were both delighted at this great idea. Luca touched his sister's soft ass after her pain was gone. Join me, touch, Luca says. Alex touched her ass and massaged her. What are you doing? Olivia said, surprised at what they were doing to her. We are just playing, Luca reassured her while she was laughing gently and shyly. What does friendship mean to you? Alex asked Luca. True friendship is the joining of two people in one personality, carrying one thought, Luca replied. Friendship is the only flower without thorns, Olivia added. While they were talking, Alex put his cheek on Olivia's ass like a pillow. So they both kissed her ass. Olivia felt a bit awkward. Yo, both of you are playing with my ass like dough. Olivia joked. Olivia wanted to stretch out and relax. She raised her buttocks, clearly showing her asshole. What do you think of making a jug of black tea so that we can stay up late tonight and hang out while you're playing with me and enjoying my ass? It didn't take more than a few minutes for Luca to produce a jug of black tea. He brought it with cups and sugar. Olivia drank the hot tea and the steam from it rose into the air. Oh, delicious tea. We can enjoy this jug tonight, Olivia said. They got a pillow for Olivia while she was lying down. She puts it under her body, raising her buttocks for them. They slid their fingers into her narrow small anus. Whoa. Come on, it hurts, said Olivia, feeling pleasure and pain at the same time. We want to see inside your anus, Alex said curiously. Yeah, I'm all for that, said Luca enthusiastically. But I'm afraid there might be some shit. Luca said. Yeah, gods. Alex said disgusted. Hope you find some treasure, Olivia said, mocking them. Alex put his longest finger into Olivia's anus. Then her brother Luca did the same. She opened up and relaxed her a little. Did you find anything? Olivia said curiously. Lift your ass more, sister. She raised her buttocks to make her anus stick out. Luca opened sister's ass cheeks with both hands, and her anus became visible. Alex inserted his fingers. It opened up. It's a pink hole. My God, it's clean inside, Alex said. There is no shit like we feared, Luca said, surprised. While they were looking inside her anus, their faces close to her ass, Olivia suddenly farted in their faces for a joke she was laughing. Bitch, why did you do it right in our faces? They both said. They rushed and brought iron chains and bound her hands and feet. Why did you fart in our faces? I can fart any time I want, that's a skill, Olivia said, explaining it. So, let's try to put some perfume in your anus, Alex suggested. Yes, Olivia said, without hesitation. Then they put perfume in her anus. She farted and now they smelled a good smell mixed with a bad smell. Oh God, what is that strange smell? Alex said, annoyed. I think it's a mixed scent, Luca said. Olivia laughed maliciously. Ha, you didn't like the smell. Olivia said nastily. Let's try an experiment, Luca said. He brought a lighter and lit it near her perfume-filled asshole. Do it, he told his sister. She farted and made a lot of fire inside the trailer without anyone being hurt or anything being burnt. And they repeated the experiment. She was having fun and farting and then farting over and over again while the fire raged to the ceiling of the trailer. Soon after, her anus got overheated due to the fire coming from her ass. Oh, my ass is burning, it's so hot, Olivia said, complaining. Alex, get up and fetch water from the tap, please, Luca said. The water is hot, do you still want me to bring it? Alex said. Why there isn't there any cold water, poor me, Olivia said. While her asses was naked, and she was lying down, she came up with an idea. There is no solution except to spit in my ass to cool it off, I'm on fire, Olivia said while she squeezed her butt in pain. No, I don't want to spit in your ass. Me too, neither. Both of them said. Olivia wasn't happy with their decision. Why can't anyone feel sorry for me? Olivia moaned angrily. The boys looked at each other shyly and then both of them spit into her anus. They massaged her anus with their fingers, applying an ointment to her. She was calm and relaxed, she uncontrollably showed a voice. Involuntarily let out a nah. Praised be the God. We are friends, Alex said. Yeah, we were bored before you came, Olivia agreed with Alex. My friend, where have you been all this time? We missed you, Luca said, happy about the reunion. They all felt an intimacy and harmony as if they were innocent spirits who had met eons ago. What do you think about us kissing your delicious ass? Luca told his sister. Yes, your ass looks soft, oh, I could just bite into it, Alex said. No, this is my ass, not a commodity, or food, or even a toy for you to play with, Olivia said, denouncing their heinous idea. I swear to God, I will take care of you and will never forget about your rights, Alex said. My sister, I am your brother, and I'm here, and nothing will happen to you, God forbid. We won't lie to you, just kissing and sniff, and it certainly won't go beyond cunnilingus, he said it, excited at the thought of it. Let me think a little, Olivia thought, placing her finger on her soft lips. This is my friend and my brother, and they won't lie to me, she said to herself. Okay then, I agree, she said to them. They were so happy, and both of them kissed her ass again and again, sniffing and licking her while she was laughing lightly and shyly. She became very happy with them playing with her as if she was a rose, and they were bees sucking nectar from her. Hey, Luca, what do you think about taking off our pants? Alex said. It's not a bad idea, Luca said. What did you say? Olivia said, turning her face to them, while she was lying down. You want to take advantage of me? Olivia said, astonished by their outrageous plan. No, no, I promise you that you will be fine and we won't take advantage of you. Her brother reassured her, and she was convinced. They took off their pants and their penises were erect and warm. Olivia was so surprised to see their penises so big and erect that she grabbed both of them in her soft hands. Hey, your sister is so beautiful and cute, Alex said to Luca. After that, they took turns riding her by moving their genitals on her ass cheeks. Were either of you being bullied at school? Olivia said with Alex on top of her. No, maybe because I'm strong, Alex said, pointing to his tight muscles. As for me, I experienced a lot of harm from the bad words of others about me, Luca said, taking turns on top of her. Alex held her hand and kissed her while her brother moved his cock on her butt cheeks while they were drinking tea. Don't bother with them, everyone who bullies you or hurts you will regret it very much, don't worry, we're with you, Alex said sympathetically. It's my turn, Luca, Alex said as he waited for his turn to move his cock in Olivia's ass and enjoy it. Olivia was so happy to it. Oh, I liked this game. I want more and more fun, Olivia said, she lusts after and loves them. Put it into me. Have sex with me, please, Olivia said insistently. Alex inserts his penis in her, and even reaches his penis to his balls. He moved his penis tenderly and emotionally. Oh, you are so beautiful and generous, I envy you for your sister, Luca, Alex said with affection. What do you think is the philosophy of the idea of money, since you are a student of economics? Lucas said curiously wondering. Yes, why isn't everything free? Olivia said while Alex was over her. Alex was putting penis in her ass, without moving his penis while they were talking. According to my study of economics and my imperfect knowledge, the trailer is made of steel or iron in China. To soften these metals it takes fire. To make a fire, it requires gas. To make gas, it requires qatar. The two siblings laughed, so he continued talking. The heat insulator came from Poland, every piece in this trailer is from another country. Thousands of people, in fact, collaborated to make these original pieces for the trailer, before its manufacture, by the parent company. Those who made it don't speak the same language. People practicing different religions. People who might hate each other if they met one day. When you go to the market and buy this trailer, you are actually sharing a few minutes of your time, a few seconds from the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and urged them to cooperate in the production of this trailer? There was no government commissioner sending government employees who sent orders from some central office. This is the magic of the pricing system, impersonal processes for a price, which brought them together and made them cooperate with several companies with one company to manufacture this trailer. So that you can get it for a small price compared to making it yourself. For this reason, the idea of the corporate partnership came about. They share to make the interest rate for them. This is the summary of the economic philosophy, Alex said. That's cool. But you didn't answer our question about why there is money and why everything isn't free? Luca said. You are talking about communism. It is a term that refers to a group of ideas in political organization and society and is based on common ownership of the means of production in the economy. According to its theorists, it leads to the end of social stratification. And a social change that leads to no need for money, Alex responded. Yes, that's what I want. I'm a communist then, Olivia said, surprised at herself. We became communists, Luca said, surprised by his fate. But we need money, Olivia said. Yeah, Luca said. But we want to be free without the need for money. The two siblings agreed. There is a solution, which is to save money and spend less, Alex said, to solve this intellectual dilemma. Yes, saving. The siblings said. Alex took his penis out of her ass and started moving it. Save, 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 he said, and they all started singing save, save, save. It's my turn, Luca told Alex to take his sister in the ass. Both took turns having sex with Olivia from behind. Oh, I love every second of you taking me in the ass. Thank you, I am grateful, because my brother is understanding, and you are good friends and I'm comfortable with you, Olivia said happily. Meanwhile they carried on playing with her ass. See how wonderful our lives are alone in the trailer, freed from the debts and burdens that many people bear, Luca said. Ha ha, we opened your ass, Olivia, Alex said. We opened her up like a flower, Luca said sarcastically. Well, I definitely won't be constipated for a while, Olivia said, putting this forward as an argument. This time Luca and Alex were taking her ass more and more quickly. In and out and changing places and taking turns after a few moments. Soon they were all sweating while the sweet smell of sex and saliva was coming from Olivia's ass in the trailer. I'm coming, Alex and Luca said together. Alex shot his sperm up her anus and Luca sprayed it all over her ass. So her ass was like a beehive, dripping with honey. Get the tissues, Alex said to Luca. So they cleaned her ass from the semen. They showered together and lay on the big bed together, so they stuck together like innocent children. They hugged each other, showing their deep bond, and they fell into a deep slumber. The trailer windows were open, the breeze rose into the somber forest sky. After a long gorgeous evening, Alex's phone rang and it was his father calling to criticize him for staying out so late. Luca and Olivia didn't like it at first and told Alex to stay a little longer, but they realized they have had to say goodbye to their friend. After a lovely quiet sleep, Olivia and Luca woke up in the morning and headed straight to the refrigerator, dying for breakfast with a hot cup of tea, but all of their enthusiasm disappeared as they found their refrigerator empty. A quiet morning this time, before Olivia and Luca both got bored and felt the need to leave the trailer and go for a walk into the nearby forest. They spent a few hours away from the trailer in the fresh air, hiking through the forest they had always loved, looking for some food, climbing trees together. In a field of wildflowers with sunlight gleaming over them, the two of them felt the love urge to dance and embrace each other, dancing with so much love and passion, but also dancing with extreme hunger, pain, and poverty. They swayed as if they wanted to stagger the devil himself, together in harmony as the gentle winds danced through the trees, dressed in their shabby clothes, shaking their hair, their soft faces and their earrings dancing with them, swaying with so much love for each other and so much passion for their hopes, dreams and aspirations. Still starving, they continued the journey searching for some fresh food until suddenly they came across some bodies hidden in the woods. At first, they thought these bodies were just some lion's prey, but all of that changed when they smelled grilled meat. Olivia and Luca followed that smell until they hid behind tree branches and saw this terrible scene. An eccentric shepherd, a recluse from the town, was grilling a human body, eating it angrily, reciting poetry about revenge, as if was a religious ritual. Blood is my right and I will only restore it with revenge. I will not forget my loss. And their blood is the only path to seek revenge, the shepherd said in a poetic tone. Olivia and Luca were feeling like never before in their life, ran away in the woods far from the smell of the human meat, and when they finally felt safe they slept under the full moon. Luca put his head on her sister's stomach, hearing her rumbling inside from hunger. Her tears were falling when her brother told her. Where is the justice, Olivia? Luca said. Olivia said in an agitated voice, humans have always looked for it. But I only see revenge in the eyes of humans, Luca said. Olivia replied, it's a misconception in humans about revenge, Luca. Everyone thinks we can all apply justice by ourselves. So how can we protect our rights if nobody else feels our pain, Luca said. We shouldn't make ourselves seek revenge, Luca. We need to be better, lift our souls higher than others. Luca wrapped his arm around her harder. Oh, Olivia. I really love you. Olivia said in a sad voice, I just wish humans were different and our life was more compassionate and merciful. There was no sound in the forest except the sound of swaying branches, and the voice of their breathing. Their eyes closed slowly for sleep, pleasant sleep, with their bodies bound together in the middle of the forest, bound with love, hunger, and pain, closely together. They woke up the next morning. Look over there, Luca. Olivia pointed towards a muddy dog lying on his back by a tree. He could bite, Olivia. I don't want to go near him. Olivia was already on her way towards the dog. Luca hesitated but followed her nervously. Olivia began to pet the dog's head gently. The dog was surprisingly playful and Olivia enjoyed it. Luca was still quite uncomfortable but stayed beside her. The dog walked in the footsteps left behind by Olivia. A little farther down the path, they found a stream of crystal clear water. They had finally made it. Olivia started walking faster, almost running towards the stream. Luca and the dog walked on as well, each of them following Olivia. They did not know how to feel during that walk. They just walked, not knowing what the water would hold. The three of them ran quickly to the river and Olivia sank her head into water, taking in the cool feeling of each drop flowing against her. The dog sat alongside Olivia and drank the cool water. Then Luca screamed. Olivia! There was a tiger. A tiger. Not too far away on the other side of the stream. They were both terrified to see the tiger and did not know what to do. This was the first time they had been in such a situation. They tried to run but the tiger was walking even faster towards them. The distance between the tiger and the three of them was decreasing and it was only a matter of time before it caught them. Lucas screamed again. Olivia! Olivia! The tiger is just about to eat us, the tiger is very near to us. The three of them started screaming with fear. Now, they were frozen to the spot and frightened for their lives. That beast jumped into the water and made its way towards Olivia, Luca and the dog. The dog moved forward to defend them and started barking. He'd never barked louder in his life. He barked and tried to do his best. He was so brave. Olivia! Olivia tripped and fell to the ground. She couldn't move for a while. Luca came over to her and grabbed her. Come on, Ollie, we have to run. Come on. Olivia was really sad because she wanted to save the dog, but she fell down and scratched her leg. Suddenly, they heard a monstrous growl. Luca and Olivia only heard a tiny whimper coming from the poor dog. The tiger clawed at the dog and he fell. The tiger laid into the dead dog and began to consume its flesh. Luca and Olivia could hear the tiger feasting on the dog. They didn't dare look back. The dog was gone. Both Luca and Olivia started crying as the dog had died to save them. She thought she should have never even gone to the dog at all. But now that dog was gone forever. While both of them they were walking back to the trailer, they started to become desperate. I'm hungry. Me too, both of them said. By now their clothes and skin were dirty. Why is there so much evil in this world? Olivia said. The world is a cruel place, but some philosophers say that evil does not exist. At all. She looked at him strangely. He continued, yes, evil is comparative, and if there was no dog, we would have been eaten by the tiger, so the dog would be better off without us and we would be food for the tiger. There is no real evil, Luca said, explaining the meaning of evil. The world keeps fucking us and you say there is no evil. Olivia said, shouting down his argument. At that time, sand was flying from the winds of iniquity, while the shepherd was drinking from the blood of his victim. They were exhausted and famished. They foraged through the woods quietly, determined to find what they were looking for. Dry twigs broke underneath their stamping boots. They fell onto a dirty, lonely path and walked on until they saw a white cottage carefully tucked behind sprawling trees and low bushes as though hiding from the rest of the world. A black Mercedes, coated with dust and fallen rust-colored leaves, was parked out front. The cottage windows were open. Its immaculate white curtains fluttered in the air. Someone's in there, Luca observed. I think so. What do we do? Olivia thought for a while. We need some money or food at least. We have to get inside there. Maybe we can find some money we can take. Luca was quiet. His once thick, beautiful hair had turned dirty and full of rubbish from the woods, red sand and leaves. His full, red lips pursed in hesitation. Olivia rolled her eyes. We need the money to eat, remember? She said. Luca gave a reluctant nod. Olivia pushed him forward. Come on, let's go. They tiptoed to the east end of the cottage and stopped underneath its high-hanging, Open window. I'll push you up first and then you'll help me, Olivia said. Luca held onto the tiny openings on the cottage wall and waited for his sister to heave him up. Once inside, he stretched out his hands to pull Olivia up. The cottage's living room was sparsely furnished. Framed pictures lined the wall. They found a thick-set, old man with graying hairs snoring heavily on the pull-out couch. Saliva ran down the sides of his lips. Air puffed out of his nostrils as he took heavy breaths in and out. Olivia led the way out of the living room. Luca followed her footsteps. They skidded round the couch with the sleeping man on it, making their way into the bedroom. In the short hallway, Olivia tripped on a piece of wood that was sticking out. Quickly, she grabbed onto the wooden cabinet resting on the wall. A cup danced off its top shelf, bounced in the air before landing on the ground with a loud thud. Olivia and Luca froze. They looked back at the sleeping figure. He stirred for a brief while and then went back to sleep. Relieved, they continued on their way to the bedroom. The door was already open. Luca saw the leather wallet on the bedside drawer first. He pointed at it and Olivia grabbed it. Money bills were neatly folded and tucked into it. Olivia smiled happily. "This should do it," she said, taking out all the bills. She stashed them clumsily into her jean pocket. "Come on, let's go." As they turned to leave, they saw the figure standing on the threshold, with a long gun cocked and pointed at them, patiently waiting for them to turn around. Olivia gasped out loud. The sleeping man had woken up. "What are you doing in my house?" the man asked viciously. "Please sir," Olivia pleaded, throwing her hands in the air. The man glanced at the empty drawer. "Did you come in here to steal my wallet?" he asked. "No, no, no. It's right here. See?" Olivia pulled the wallet out of her back pocket and held it out to the man. He stared at them momentarily as though realizing that they're just tired, harmless teenagers. He lowered his gun, accepted the wallet from Olivia and walked into the bedroom. "I'm going to call the police," he said, pulling out a cell phone from his jean pocket. "Please sir, you don't have to do that. We were just hungry and tired. We needed the money to eat. Please, we'll get out of here right now if you let us go," Olivia continued pleading with the man. Lucas started whimpering pathetically. "I don't think you understand the magnitude of the crime you've committed. You broke into my house and stole my wallet. That's breaking and entering and it's punishable according to the laws of this state. You're not getting out of here. I'm calling the police." He continued punching numbers into the phone. Luca rushed towards him and tried to grab the gun from him. Instinctively the man knocked Luca away and he fell, hitting his head on the edge of the wooden bed frame. Luca cried out in pain. Olivia ran to him and knelt down to help him up. "Stay here," the man barked curtly. He waltzed out of the room and slammed the door shut. "You shouldn't have done that, Luca," Olivia reprimanded her brother. "I wanted to do something to help," Luca said, rubbing his temple vigorously. "I know, but it was a dangerous move. Are you okay?" "I think I'll live." "Do you think he's calling the police?" "Yes, I believe so." "What do you think will happen to us when they take us away?" "I don't know. Probably lock us up or charge us in court." "I don't know, Luca." "We are going to be okay, right?" "Yes, we'll be fine, don't worry." They huddled together in silence, patiently awaiting their fate. Soon, the wail of police sirens broke the silence. From the bedroom window, they saw the blue and red colors of the police cars swirling around. They heard the front door open and the low tones of the men talking outside. Soon, the bedroom door swung open and a stern-faced policeman entered along with the owner of the cottage. "There they are," the sleeping man said accusingly, pointing at them. The policeman stopped in front of the shivering teenagers. "I'm afraid I need you both to come with me," he said, his velvety voice thick and firm. His gun upholstery was open, his hand ready to grab the gun. "Officer, please, this is all a big misunderstanding," Olivia pleaded. "Hands where I can see them please," the officer barked. Olivia and Luca knelt and raised their hands in the air, surrendering. You're both under arrest. The officer started reading their rights. The officer pushed Luca onto the ground, roughly. He pressed Luca's face down on the hardwood floor and forcefully clamped handcuffs around his wrists. Luca's loud groans filled the air. "Officer, you're hurting him," Olivia said, the pitch of her voice rising. "Shut up." The officer snapped, pulling Olivia down. He handcuffed Olivia as well, just as roughly. The cool metal on her wrist discomforted her. She tried to twitch her hand without much success. "Where are you taking us?" Olivia asked as she was hauled onto her feet and pushed out of the bedroom. "To hell." The police car drove them straight to the station, where they were hauled to a holding cell. Its door was clanged shut and locked with a jangling key produced from the officer's trousers. The police cell was drab, cramped and filled with arrested, boorish perps. The smudged, grey paint on the wall was flaking. Benches were lined against the wall. The air in the room was thick with the mixed stench of the different inmates. Luca led the way to the empty bench on the east end of the cell. A heavily tattooed man with a lugubrious expression on his face sat at the end of the opposite bench. Another inmate, brutish and wearing a wolfish grin on his scarred face, paced along the short length of the cell. His ragtag outfit was torn and rumpled in many places. He threw Olivia wily glances, occasionally licking his lips and running his hand through his scraggly beard. Olivia tried to ignore his creepy glances. Her tight lips were pursed into svelte silence. As though pissed by her silence, the man came to a stop in front of Olivia. "What's up, baby?" he asked, his lips widened into a repulsive smile. Spittle danced out of his parted lips, landing on Olivia, who recoiled clumsily. Undeterred by her silence, he persisted. "What's a sexy girl like you doing with her big ass in a crappy place like this, huh?" When she didn't reply, his ashen face turned caustic. He stepped closer till he was inches away from Olivia's face. "Girl, I'm talking to you," he snarled. "And she's ignoring you." Luca jumped to his sister's defense. He rose and faced the man, who let out a derisive laugh. "Ah, I see we got a young lion here," he snorted, turning to the other inmates. Some of them laughed with him while the rest remained in stony silence. The man turned back to Luca. "Let's see what you got," he barked, striking Luca in the chest. Luca fell back on the bench. The man grabbed Luca by the shirt and hurled him into the air. "Leave my brother alone," Olivia rushed at the man. Luca threw a weak punch at the man's face. He threw Luca against the wall and stalked towards him. Luca ran to meet him halfway, grabbing his waist, and tried to lift him into the air. He started hitting Luca's bent back relentlessly. The chaos caused a loud ripple that made officers run to the cell. The cell gate opened and police officers pulled the fighting men apart. Luca's breath shortened. Beads of sweat collected on his forehead. Olivia held him and helped him straighten his rumpled shirt. "I will fuck your mother," Luca said to the man who had been fighting him. "Yes, after I fuck your sister up the ass." Luca spit out bloodied spittle and wiped the sides of his lips. Moments later, the officer who had arrested them appeared and led them to the phone booth. "You get to make one phone call. Use it wisely," he snapped. Olivia punched in the numbers. Their uncle picked up on the third ring. "Hello, Uncle Richard?" "Olivia? Is that you? Where are you?" "We are in the police station, Luca and I. We need you to come get us." "Police? What did you do?" "Please, just get here." Uncle Richard arrived a few minutes later. He was fuming in that way that made his nostrils flare. "You were arrested for stealing?" Uncle Richard yelled when he saw them. "I can explain," Olivia said in a subdued voice. "Just get in the car. I've paid the bail." "You better have a good explanation for this behavior," Uncle Richard said, leading the way out. During their ride, their Uncle Richard was ranting about what they turned into. "What's happening to the both of you? You wanted to steal. I didn't expect it from you both." Luca was so pissed because of what had happened to them recently that he exclaimed to his Uncle Richard, "Hypocrite! Look who's talking." You bisexual, you are always looking for young men to fuck you in your ass, you fucker. We know what you did to our mother before, to your business, you fooled her. You stole thousands of dollars from her. Uncle Richard wiggles, recoiling from Luca's lightning strike. He stopped the car and got out, opened the back door and forced Luca out. He dragged Luca out of by his arms. Come on here, you spoiled kid. Uncle Richard beat him with several punches and Luca tried to fight back, but his uncle was too strong and physically fit to match with for him. With that, Luca fell on the ground while Olivia was begging her uncle to stop. Uncle Richard stopped after he saw that Luca was already bleeding and decided to leave. After that, he went to the nearest convenience store to get a few items. While Luca and Olivia were on the sidewalk, Olivia tried to make Luca calm down by kissing his lips. Don't worry, everything is going to be okay, Olivia said while reaching for Luca's lips to kiss. As they kept on kissing intimately, an old man saw them and felt disgusted since he knew that these two were brother and sister. The old man headed to the store, and he accidentally happened to see the siblings' uncle. He did not hesitate to talk with him and report what he knew about the siblings. Mr. Richard? I'd like to ask if you are aware of what's happening between your niece and nephew. Are they crazy? They seem to need guidance. You should have done more since you're older than them, said by the old man with an angry tone. What are you talking about, sir? Said Uncle Richard. Your nephews are having immoral acts. They are kissing, and God knows what else they do. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. That can't be true. Those kids were raised well by their parents. We also come from a religious family. I bet you're just trying to destroy their image. Uncle Richard added with raising his voice. Ask your nephews, said by the old man while walking away from Uncle Richard. After that, Uncle Richard was shocked and couldn't even comprehend what the old man had told him until he decided to sneak out to the siblings' trailer area and see with his 2 own eyes if the old man's accusations were true. He literally couldn't move when he saw them from afar through their open window, witnessed that the 2 siblings were having sex in their bedroom inside the trailer. He stood rooted to the spot with shock. He closed his eyes because of his anger and his ears were red. He went to the car angrily. He sat in the driver's seat frustrated. He wondered what to do. How would he solve this problem? He opened the front glove compartment opposite the right passenger seat. He took out the gun, opened it and found it empty. He put 2 bullets in it. Heading over to the trailer like a raging bull, and he couldn't control his anger. He was incandescent with rage. He opened the door with such force that the door hit the inside of the trailer. The 2 siblings were surprised by the sudden noise. He entered their front room and they were frightened by his presence while they were completely naked. He stood there pointing the gun at the 2 shocked teenagers. Calm down, Olivia said to temper his anger. Fuck you, Uncle said. Will you tell me what the hell is going on between you? Now, Uncle said. Our story is that we lived with a cruel family. They secluded us from society, so that we wouldn't fall into sin. Most of the time we were together. After that we fell in love, to fulfill our emotional needs. Olivia said. That's bullshit, a sister with her brother. Fuck me, Uncle said. This isn't bullshit, she replied, immediately getting angry. Don't imagine you weren't noticed. Neighbors are spreading scandals, Uncle said. He cared a lot about his family and relatives' reputation and his commerce and would definitely not allow them to love each other. Listen to me well, I'll send both of you away, to different families, to sporadic different cities, where you cannot meet or be around each other anymore. Uncle told them in his threatening tone. My uncle, don't take any notice of what the neighbors say about us. I beg you to leave us alone, Olivia said, as calmly as she could, though, naturally she was afraid. Shut up, Uncle said, angrily while still pointing the gun. I don't want to leave my brother, I don't want to die, Olivia yelled out of fear of being separated or murdered if they didn't agree. Suddenly Luca hit his uncle with a strong iron on the hand holding the gun. Surprisingly quickly, the speed and suddenness of the blow broke his hand, the gun fell, and so did Uncle Richard, screaming in pain. Luca hit his uncle again, this time on his head, and he passed out. As their uncle lay unconscious, Olivia and Luca were still in a state of shock and didn't know what to do with him. After a few minutes, their uncle came round. "What the fuck did you do to me? What the hell, you're going to jail. I will report you to the cops," said their uncle hysterically. Olivia was asking Luca for help, so he could act quickly. Uncle grabbed his phone and started to call the cops. "Luca, be quick. Hurry up." Olivia said she was angry and afraid of what might happen. Luca was so afraid to go to jail, rushing in from outside with an axe, to stop his uncle from calling the cops. He hit his head with the axe, slicing his uncle's head in half like a watermelon. "Do you want to separate us?" Luca was extremely angry along with Olivia. The siblings decided to beat their uncle even after he was killed, because of the hatred in their hearts for him. They continued to chop their uncle's body and let it bleed in a sea of blood. They decided to cut their uncle's body into small pieces to put it in a potato sack before leaving the trailer to bring it outside together with the tools they'd used to kill their uncle. The siblings showed no mercy while killing their uncle. They've seemed to heal their hatred. When they went outside their trailer to get rid of the dead body, Luca put his plan into action. "Olivia, stay here, I'm going to get a siphon out the gasoline from Uncle's car to burn him," Luca said. He took the tube and sucked the gas out with his mouth. Then, Luca began pouring gasoline into the bag of potatoes in which his uncle's body was cut into small pieces. "Are you sure about this?" Olivia said. "Yes. We have to," Luca answered. And then Luca started to throw a lit match onto the sack, which started to burn. While watching it burn, the siblings sat down in front of the burning sack. "I'm sorry, Uncle," Olivia said. "Why? You don't have to be. He was not listening to our explanations, he didn't treat us like his close family. I felt like we were strangers to him. Let him burn," Luca said. Olivia hugged Luca and kissed him on the cheek. "Don't worry. We are safe now. We are not going to jail. It was all an accident," Olivia said. "I guess we have to grill an animal now. Let me find the nearest sheep field." So she rushed to the field. Olivia was hiding behind the trees and rocks waiting for the shepherd to move away from a herd of sheep. As she wanted to steal one of them, she continued her hide-and-seek game until she noticed the shepherd going away from the herd and immediately made her move towards stealing one of the sheep. She successfully entered the sheep herd, moved toward one of the sheep, grabbed it and then carried it firmly close to her chest, so that no one would hear the sheep bleating. She looked all around her to confirm nobody was nearby. She felt happy, smiling that her food on that day was sorted out, and she slowly walked toward her escape route. "If you move, I'll shoot you. What do you think you are doing? What a nerve. This will be a lesson to thieves and shameless people like you," the shepherd said. "I am sorry. This isn't intentional, I was forced to do so. I have been starving for 2 days now, and I'm afraid of getting ill." "That's not my problem. You are old enough to earn a living for yourself," the shepherd said. "Please pardon me, hunger made me do it. I would never think of doing this again." "Okay, I'll do whatever you want me to do." "Okay then, I want to fuck your sweet young ass or else you'll regret doing this act forever." "What? I would never do anything like that. I'm not that type of person. Kindly give me another better option please," Olivia pleaded. "Are you telling me what to do? You have the gut. That's what I want, and no man on earth will change my mind, or else I can call the police so that you spend your whole lifetime rotting in prison," the shepherd said. "All right. No problem, I agree with you, but only because I don't want to go to prison," Olivia said. "Follow me. You are attractive and gorgeous, any man on earth would be forever happy taking you to bed." "This way," the shepherd said, while he proceeded to take her to his tiny mud-built house, where he would carry out his vile act. Olivia obliged and they both entered his house and the shepherd spread a blanket on the floor. "Lie down immediately on the blanket. Didn't I tell you, you have no choice in this?" "I am trying to lie down. Please be patient with me," Olivia said as she lay on the blanket. "Today will be one of the sweetest days of my life," the shepherd said, smiling. The shepherd lay her face down, and quickly took off her short jeans, exposing her wonderful white ass. He put his spittle on her anus, and violently raped her ass, and Olivia was not interested in her honor and actually had joy in her heart, and she was secretly smiling to herself that this shepherd had no idea how hypocritical she was. Olivia ran and returned to her brother, while she held the sheep in a great mood and still holding the sheep tightly to her. She looked and felt exhausted. Her brother had been expecting her return for half an hour so that they could both satisfy their hunger. He felt surprised seeing her good mood, and how she was running like a person risking her life. "What kept you so long?" Luca asked. "Nothing, just stumbled a little bit," Olivia said. "What happened to you?" Luca asked. "The shepherd, he caught me, and he threatened to call the police, so I agreed to his conditions," Olivia said. "What conditions?" Luca asked. She turned her ass. "Holy shit. What kind of person does that?" Luca said, shocked. "This is the worst day of my life. I never imagined I would go through this kind of thing today or ever," Olivia said hypocritically. "Are you crazy? Why did you go to the field of cannibals?" Luca said. "He became generous, he gave me a sheep for free. Do you believe that?" Olivia said. Moments of silence from Luca. "Yes, I expect he has a sense of fairness," Luca said sarcastically. Both of them laughed. "Let's slaughter this sheep to eat it," Olivia said while she was putting the sheep on the ground, laying it down, and holding its neck with compassion and firmness. Luca came with a cleaver, struck the neck of the sheep, blood dripped on the ground, they skinned it, prepared the wood to grill, and lit it from the remaining gasoline. "I'm happy that we defeated our dreaded uncle. Did you see him? That gay fucker wanted to split us up," Luca said. "For trying to separate us. He was met with our revenge. Once a man with force and guts. He now lays and meets his end," Olivia said in a poetic tone about her uncle. "Let's celebrate the killing of our uncle," Olivia said. They ate the sheep and drank until their stomachs were full, celebrating the murder of their uncle, while dancing an emotional dance in front of the trailer. After finishing their celebration, the siblings went on to their next task. Luca gave Olivia a shovel and started to dig a hole in the ground. After hours and hours of digging to the point where both of them were covered in mud from head to toe, they finally had a hole big enough to bury their uncle's car. Olivia then proceeded to take the key, and drive the car near the hole where they then pushed it until it fell in. After the car was completely in the hole, they then picked up their shovels again and coved the car. The next day, looking through his deceased father's private files and papers, Luca found a document that his father had lost $70,000 about 30 years ago. "You can't believe this was the same document that caused our parents poverty all these years," Luca said to Olivia. "Really? How did it happen? That sum of money is too much," Olivia said, astonished. "I can't really explain it clearly, but that's how life is for us," Luca said. "How wealthy we would have been, if this money had come to our family," Olivia said. "You're not kidding. That explains the concept of loss in life, and that a human is always in state of loss and losing his life every minute of his life, decreasing his life. See how absurd life is," Olivia said. "Let me check the document further as I need to confirm the name of the fund manager," Luca said. "That's necessary, dear. Go ahead and check," Olivia said. "This is him, Christopher Thomas, as the fund manager," Luca said, smiling. "Awesome. What do you think? Lure him and fraud him to get some money out of him," Olivia said. "Yes, we will. That's a really great idea, and poverty will be a thing of the past in our family," Luca said, completely agreeing with this idea. The fund manager was sitting at a corner table, staring out of the window when Olivia arrived, dressed in her best outfit. It was a red gown that flowed down her lean body and showed off her cleavage. Her face was light, structured, and glowed with the makeup she'd applied. Confident in her beauty, she approached the table slowly and carefully. He looked up when she walked past his table. Olivia winked at him, smiling seductively. Her white teeth shone beautifully. Olivia dropped her pen and bowed to the ground to take it, slowly and carefully to show Christopher Thomas the full beauty and roundness of her ass. Olivia sat to the chair, holding her breath. She counted out the seconds, willing him to come to her. She was still counting when his tall figure hovered before her. "May I join you?" he asked in a tone that indicated anything but politeness, pointing at the chair opposite Olivia. She gestured to him to sit down. He grinned wolfishly, eyes twinkling with evil intention. He dropped his coffee cup on the formica-topped table, folded his arms across his solid chest and stared intently at her. Olivia felt herself drowning in the ocean of his eyes. She took a breath, recalling why she had come. "I'm honored you joined me, sir," she said, appealing to his ego. He shrugged. "You are a pretty girl. It'd be a crime not to approach you," he replied. Olivia smiled coyly, running a finger through the thick mass of her hair. Her smile encouraged the manager, made him bolder. He leaned forward, smacking his mouth hungrily. "So, what do you say we get out of here? A pretty girl like you deserves to be spoiled," he said. Olivia's smile dissolved into a sad expression. She had to move fast and tell him why she came. "No, actually I'm here to talk to you about something that is very important to me. It's about my brother and our housing situation," she said quickly, trying to fill in the space with as many words as she could before she lost his attention. "I'm sorry?" the manager asked, his face fell. "I'm really sorry to bother you, but my brother is mentally ill. He doesn't understand anything happening around him. Things have been very rough for us since we lost our parents. We live in a trailer just on the border of the nearby forest. It's a very terrible living condition for anyone, even us. My brother's health takes so much from me. Recently, I've had to sell my body to keep us." The manager stopped her with a wave of the hand. "I'm sorry, did you just say that you made money selling your body?" he asked, glee showing in his eyes. "Yes," Olivia said. "In that case, I'd like to have sex with you. In front of your brother," he said. Olivia felt her entire body stop. Blood rushed to her face. "No. No way," she said, her voice rose higher than normal. The manager frowned, his face became a cloud of rage. "Listen to me. I have a lot of money and I'll pay you a lot if you do this for me," he said. "I can see you are not ready," he said, pushing back the chair and rising. "Wait, hold on. I'll do it. I will." Olivia reacted quickly. She reached out and grabbed his hand. "Good choice. All right then, shall we?" he asked, extending his arm. Olivia stood up, placed her hand in clasp his fingers, and together, they left the restaurant. The drive to the trailer was enthusiastic. They got inside the trailer. "So, sir, meet my brother. His name is Luca," Olivia said. The manager smiled ironically when he saw Luca's state. He was bedraggled, his hair was a dreadlocked mess. Luca's eyes were wide with madness. His nails, long and dirty, flew around in the air as he jumped and screamed and yelled. Luca's wounded theatrics exacerbated grew while the manager stared disbelievingly at him, excitement mounting inside him. He smiled suggestively at her. She approached him slowly, her heart beating heavily against the cage of her chest. She stopped in front of him, peering deep into his eyes. They were giddy with sexual excitement. He touched her arms, gently at first and then forcefully as he shoved her down on the ground before his protruding penis. She swallowed her saliva, preparing herself for what was to come. Luca flailed about, angrily. Even though he did not understand what was happening, he seemed personally enraged by it. Olivia pitied him, he didn't deserve it. None of them did, but she had to do it if they must survive. The manager opened the fly of his trousers, pulled his penis out and started stroking it expectantly. Olivia stared at it momentarily. It was big and half limp. "Go on, open your mouth," the manager growled, lustfully. Olivia opened her mouth and he pushed his penis to her lips. She kissed his penis wholeheartedly. She licked and sucked and rubbed crazily until he grew larger than life inside her mouth. He grabbed her by her hair violently, filling her up with his penis to the point of suffocation. She gagged hard, ropey strings of saliva dripped from her mouth. Olivia wanted to cry out loud and gasp for breath, but the manager wouldn't back off. He thrust into her mouth with his penis repeatedly, breathing unevenly with low groans escaping from his lips like a wounded animal. When he was satisfied, he stopped and pulled his rock-hard dick out of her mouth. Quickly, he grabbed her dress, tore through to reveal her busty breasts. He rubbed and squeezed hard, circling her nipples and tugging lightly. She cried out from the pleasure it sent down her body. "You like that? Eh? You like that, my little whore?" he muttered sensually into her ears. Olivia whimpered in response. He tugged hard on her right nipples. "Say it. I want to hear you say it," he said a little too loudly, an assertive display of the power he had over her. "Yes, I do. I like it," she responded. He kissed her violently, biting down on her lower lip and spitting into her mouth. Shifting into position, he puts his penis lengthwise on her soft face, hits his penis with contempt on her face, mocked her. On her face were lines of consternation. Violently, he dragged her by her hair to his back. He thrust her face deep into his anus, ordering her to lick up him. Olivia had begun to cry, tears of horror tingled with pleasure. When he farted loudly on her, she yelled out. The manager burst out in body shaking, mocking laughter. Olivia hated how powerless she felt. This man had her in the palms of his hands, or, more correctly, tucked inside his anus, and there was nothing she could do to break free. Finally, he pulled her out, still smiling foolishly. He held up her chin, peering into her face. "I'll give you a bonus if you swallow my semen," he said so casually as though his words were light and meant nothing. Olivia shook her head negatively. He gripped her face tighter. "I'm talking about a bonus that will change your life forever. You'll never be poor again. You and your brother will be well taken care of for the rest of your life," he said. Slowly, Olivia nodded with tears glistened in her eyes. The manager started stroking his penis hard until he came, his body spasming from the pleasure it gave him. He pushed his penis into Olivia's face. She opened her mouth, closed her eyes, and waited for it all to splash across her face. His semen was warm and salty as they pooled and collected into a messy mound on her tongue. Finally, the manager looked down intently at her and said, "Good girl. Now, swallow." With one large gulp, Olivia swallowed it all. Olivia cleans herself up as the manager buckles his trousers, breathing heavily. He had the aftermath smell of sex. Olivia waited for him to pay up, but he didn't. Instead, he started fumbling around with his wallet, searching for money that wasn't there. "I'm afraid I may not have come with enough cash," he said, cackling awkwardly. Olivia stepped close to him, fury rearranging her face. What was he talking about? She had just let him defile her body. There was no way in hell he would leave the trailer without making good on his promise. "What do you mean by that?" Olivia asked furiously. The fund manager stepped back a little, showing her the near-empty wallet. Look at it, I don't have enough money," he said. Olivia let out a half-crazed peal of laughter. "You don't have money? You knew that you didn't have enough money, and yet you followed me here and made me do all those disgusting things to you?" she asked. "You asked me, remember? You wanted me to come here. You asked for me. You were the one that approached me at that restaurant. You wanted to be my little whore and admit, girl, you enjoyed every minute of it as much as I did. So, please don't act as if you didn't. You are as sick in the head as your brother here. What kind of person would agree to fuck a stranger in front of her mentally deranged brother?" the manager retorted. He made for walking out, but Luca blocked the entrance. "That is because her brother here isn't in any way mentally deranged," he said, smiling cruelly. The manager stepped back, confused and slightly afraid. Luca had changed from the deranged boy he met a few minutes ago to a perfectly normal man. "What is going on here?" the manager asked. "I'll tell you what is going on here. You, my friend, haven't changed a bit. You are still the same despicable man that duped our father 30 years ago, Luca replied to him. The manager looked confused now. What are you talking about? He asked, staring at Luca intently. Luca shrugged. You've forgotten? Our father invested $70,000 with your company 30 years ago. You disappeared with that money and never gave him his profit. And right now, you slept with my sister with no intention of paying the money you promised. How low can you get? You exploited our vulnerability, and now you are going to pay very dearly, Luca explained. The manager started shaking. Please, I can't remember your father. Lots of people lost their stocks with me 30 years ago. Please, just let me go. Oh, you mean like how you promised to pay back earnings in shares to my father and never did? Listen to me very carefully, you will pay back everything you owe us, and you'll pay money for a blowjob. You're a son of a bitch or else. You will regret the day you were born. You'll regret the day you scammed our father. Look around you. We can do anything we want to you, and no one will even hear you scream, Luca threatened viciously. It doesn't even make sense, for 30 years, the manager said. No, now, for blowjob with my sister, not 30 years ago, this is your end, Luca said. The manager turned around and saw Olivia approaching him with an axe she had pulled out from its hidden position, and he was terrified. Raising the axe high into the air, she struck down hard on his neck. The manager cried out, blood spurted from the open wound in his neck, splashing across Olivia's face, body and clothes. He fell to the ground, grabbing his bleeding neck. Luca approached them, holding his hammer. He struck down the manager, cutting deep into his skin. Side by side. This is better, he said while giving his sister another hammer. They continued hitting him until he became a meaty pulp. Blood had covered their entire bodies and hair. They stepped away from the body, their arms aching badly. Olivia licked the blood off her mouth, tasting and savoring the victory that came with it. Luca handed her a cleaver. She accepted it quietly and went to work on the manager's remains. They worked until dusk, cutting and slicing off the manager's body and packing them into plastic bags. By the time they were done, Olivia's stomach was growling with painful pangs of hunger. I'm starving, she said, rubbing her stomach in circles. They were sitting on the bloodied floor, exhausted from everything that had happened. Luca groaned loudly. Me too, he said. What can we eat? I'm too tired to forage, Olivia said, lying back down in the pool of congealed blood. An idea started forming in Luca's mind, a statement that he got from observing the shepherd earlier. He smiled conspiratorially as he looked back at the bagged body lying in a heap at a corner of the room. Well, we don't have to forage for food when we've got free meat right here with us, he said, winking at Olivia. She sat up, staring at Luca intently, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Her gaze followed Olivia's as they stared at the bags that housed the manager's body. Look around you, we've just murdered a man. I think we crossed the insane line after we cut him up, Luca said. World with no safety, Olivia said. All right then, let's grill him. They exited the trailer, wandering around the forest searching for wood and everything that will help them grill the manager. When the fire was set, they untied the bags, taking out different parts of the manager's body. They placed the body parts above the fire and watched as it cooked until they were done. When their food was ready, they stared at the plate, suddenly reluctant to eat the meat. It was black, smoky, and slightly burned. Olivia tried it first after a few minutes. She took a bite, chewed thoroughly, and swallowed. I am not sure about the taste, it's 50-50, she said. Luca took a bite and nodded with his eyes closed. What a delightful end to a cruel man, he said. Full of anger, we lived in fear. For a while, we shed tears, Olivia said poetry. But now it's time to act. And their head we cracked. So, Luca continued. The following week, while watching TV, Olivia saw a scene of someone hitting another playfully. This brought memories of her past at school, and she became depressed. What's wrong? Luca said. I feel like my heart burns, Olivia said, her face pale. She started talking about this event that had happened long time ago. One day, there was a masquerade party at school. I'm sitting alone in the classroom, and a girl rushes towards me wearing a clown mask. Her relatives accompanied her. She then hit me for no reason, perhaps to prove she's strong and brave in front of her relatives. Don't worry, Luca said to calm her down. How can I calm down when I feel the fire within me, Olivia said. Take the calming pills that we took from the psychiatrist, Luca advised. No, the pills can't change the truth and reality, Olivia said, insisting on her opinion. Well, there is only one way to relieve your pain, baby, Luca said. What is it? Olivia said while her pupils widened. I will lure a girl into this trailer, Luca said. Olivia smiled joyfully as she agonized over her sentiment. She felt like her soft skin was finally released from the chains of Bernd. After they searched for her for several days, finally they found her. Luca was standing on the street looking at her through the exterior glass. His face changes, and his breath quickens as if he was a bull wanting to butt his opponent. He entered the cafeteria while she was eating her meal. The cafeteria belongs to the yoga club where she had just finished exercising. He sat next to her, placing his meal beside hers, while the TV showed a documentary on chaos theory. The world has many unpredictable things, Luca said. She looked at him and continued. Previously, our dreams for the future were bright and open-minded, but unfortunately, we cannot anticipate them, said Luca with a smile. He extended his hand to her while she looked at him and extended her hand to greet him, so they met 2 days later, and they went inside the trailer. Faye entered with calm steps, while Olivia wore a mask on her face to symbolize revenge. Hi, Faye said. But Olivia was silent as if his coals were ignited from under embers. This one whom you want me to teach yoga receives guests looking unkempt. I'm leaving, Faye said. Wait. Olivia took off the mask and showed her face with makeup that symbolizes crying and sadness. Nay, this is my sister and my sweetheart, Luca said, smiling nastily. Take this, bitch. Olivia lifts the knife she hid to stab Faye's face. Faye kicks Olivia to the ground, opens the trailer door, and speeds outside. She runs towards the street, her heart beating wildly out of fear. Luca was furious that Faye had escaped their trap. He picked up the axe and jumped up to run after Faye. Come back, bitch, as he ran after her. Apart from being very angry, Luca is also very afraid. Luca had to be like a sly fox to catch her. He had to make sure that he was not running in vain. Faye was running like a speeding deer breaking the expected speed. Faye wanted to scream for help, but there was no one around. She just had to get to the main road, and perhaps a car would stop, and the driver would help her. She looked back again, so Faye stumbled and fell. That is what saved her. Unfortunately, it was an axe, and the axe hit a tree. As Faye jumped up and continued to run, she soon reached the street, and she was gasping for breath. A car passed, and Faye runs to the middle of the road to stop it. The car stopped suddenly, almost hitting Faye. The driver was an older woman. She was furious. What is wrong with you? I could have killed you, the old woman said lividly. Faye jumped into the passenger seat of the car, gasping with fright. What? What is it? The old woman asked. 2 people, a boy and a girl, are trying to kill me, Faye cried. On the street? The woman responded strangely. Just then, Luca showed up. He forced the door open. Excuse me, madam. I am so sorry for this inconvenience. This is my sister, and she has bipolar disorder mania. Our mother has been worried, and she has been looking for her. No. He is lying. He is a killer. Get us out of here, Faye was saying. Get you and your sister out of my car. The old lady shouted angrily. Faye continued to scream, no. No. Luca pulls her out of the car. Luca pulled her out of the car, and the old lady sped away. Luca threw Faye on the sidewalk. No other car was passing by. Luca suffocated her as she tried to struggle. Luca shivered as he strangled her, afraid that someone may pass by. Faye took her last breath and died just as Olivia arrived. They carried the body back to the trailer. In their utmost disgust for her, both could not have been more satisfied as they cut her body into medium-sized parts, cursing her with each whack of the hammer they were using to separate the bones. "This could have been so easy, Faye, all you had to do was cooperate," Luca said, holding Faye's separated head in his hand. "Now look at the mess you've made." "Bitch!" Olivia exclaimed as she slit her lips with a neat stroke of his knife and started putting chunks of her body in different bags, feeling her rage finally dying down. They had almost wrapped her up in separate bags. No two complementary body parts were placed in one bag. No limb or organ was left in its original condition. It was impossible to identify, looking at the chopped up chunks, which body part they belonged to. "Beware of someone you hit, and it doesn't hit you because it won't forgive you and won't let you forgive yourself," Olivia said. Knock knock. Luca's shivered hands as he heard the sound at the door. Olivia gave him a worried look and started to put away the plastic bags in the opposite room as Luca moved towards the door. "Good night, this is Officer Gordon from the police department. You mind if we ask you a few questions?" the officer asked, looking Luca straight in the eye. "Why, yes officer," Luca replied with a trembling voice. "May I ask what this is about?" The officer, while eyeing him suspiciously, casually started walking into the trailer. "Hi there," he smiled angrily at Olivia. "Hello, officer, please come this way," Olivia replied as she motioned at the dining table. "So, as I was saying, I'm sure you've heard Mr. Richard has been missing for quite some time now," he said as he sat down. "Do you happen to know where he might be?" "Oh, our uncle is missing, my God," Olivia said, shocked. "What happened? How long is he missing?" Luca said, sympathetically. "The last time we talked was when we saw him in the supermarket, and he said he was heading out to the lakeside to catch some fish," Luca said. "Fishing?" said the officer accompanying Gordon, raising an eyebrow while writing a note. "Yeah, he loves fishing, goes out to the lake every other weekend," said Luca as he put an arm around his sister, trying to calm his sister, shocked. The cop stands up to walk around the trailer and have a look. After that, in moments of silence, "What you got there?" Officer Gordon asked firmly, pointing towards the plastic bag in the corner of the room where the body was. In an utter state of confusion, Olivia and Luca forgot about everything. All they could see were flashes of both of them cutting Faye's body. The officer kept going into the room, picking up a bag each time, making the siblings deadly nervous. The officer was staring at the contents of the bag and asked them in disbelief, "What is this?" "Ah, it's a kangaroo we drove out of the woods," Olivia said in the most composed tone. "Would you like to stay and eat with us?" "Oh really?" Both the officers laughed as they peeped into the bag. Blood and meat were all the officers could see at first sight, and they were too grossed out to ask them to explain themselves further. After all, everyone did say that Luca and Olivia looked like two angels with their big blue eyes and cheeky dimples. How could the police suspect anything? "No, thank you. You both enjoy yourselves. We'll be in touch," they said as they began to leave. The officers left there and then, never suspecting that in the bag was a human corpse that this angelic duo had just mutilated. Minutes didn't pass until they laid remains of the corpse on a stainless steel cooking table. So Olivia hit bone and flesh with a hammer to make them tender, not rough. Luca put a large glass dish out for Olivia to place parts of the dead body in it. Then she put vegetables in, such as potatoes, tomatoes, and eggplant. Was she expecting it to be food for others this hour? Olivia said. Olivia puts spices and sauce and some herbs to add flavor to it. After that they put it in the oven. "How do you feel?" Luca asks. "Now, I'm perfect. How can I bear patience from the pain of those I love? The fire of love blinded me in my sentiments, Luca said, whispering into Olivia's ear. Suddenly, Luca's heart racing, vision to him was almost non-existent. "What happened to you?" Olivia said while Luca held his chest. He sat on the chair while his right leg was shivering. It's a nervous seizure. I will ban the medicine. We will kill them, torture them with our hands, and shame them into healing hearts and our weak selves." She gave him a dose of medicine as she spoke. So he calmed down immediately. "I thought that sleeping it off could cure me, but you get hurt by society continuously. It will destroy you forever," Luca said with regret for himself. At that time, Luca remembers his past with his father. "Where did you leave the pack of cigarettes?" his father said, angry. So, he hits him on the face and cries and says he doesn't know. His mother brought the pack of cigarettes. "Leave the child. I have the packet," she says. "I just want this idiot to do something," his father said. He's afraid of urinating on himself, so he takes his memory back to the present. Is there a pain worse than when talking stops between your mouth and throat? If you showed it, you regretted it, and if you kept it, you would be in pain, Olivia said sadly. How far have we come? Luca shivered, terrified, looking at his hand on their situation and the horrific crimes they had reached. It is not possible to achieve our euphoria unless we love and believe in what we are doing. Society does not feel us nor listen to us who pushed us for these things. Olivia insists that this is the right thing. She began looking at the ground, hesitating. What if we get caught one day? Olivia is afraid and continued. We will be dragged into dismal prisons. I don't wish to leave you, and there will be more and more pain. Don't worry, we will be in the best condition, and if conditions get worse, we must sacrifice, Luca said, wiping her hair and her face tenderly. Then a pleasant smell appeared from inside the oven. Looks like dinner is going to be delicious this time, both said. Suddenly a bright light appeared from outside. An armored car came near the trailer as the siblings looked through the blinds of the closed windows. When we fall into the water, winter doesn't scare us, Luca said fearlessly. Woe to us, what the judgment will they judge us? Olivia is shocked by fear. Calm down, go to the bathroom and take a deep breath as I meet them, Luca said while he is holding her face, and she is afraid. Knock knock, someone knocks on the door. Luca opened the door. I'm Detective Samuel. Can I ask you some questions? He entered, looking left and right, suspiciously. A pleasant smell. He sat on the dining table chair. I will ask you a question. What if your sister committed a murder crime and you are the only witness? Would you report it or not? At the time, Olivia was in the bath soothing herself through deep breathing. Then she went out to them. The food is good. Can you eat with us? Olivia said. Can you repeat the question? The investigator said to Olivia. Olivia stuttered as she repeated the question. All of us have flaws. Don't wear a mask of perfection and integrality. You will always find it more prominent than your face size. The investigator said to Olivia. She's embarrassed, so puts 3 dishes for them, and in it the food. They start eating the dead body with the interrogator without his knowledge. Where is your uncle's body? Oh, our uncle has died, so Luca started crying. Oh my God, don't tell me this. Olivia collapsed. The investigator is looking at them, and he is suspicious of them. Damn it, stop acting, you fuckers. I have one question for you. Where is the body? I'll admit. Olivia said. Luca looked at her, afraid to divulge their secret. Mistakes are one of the facts of this life. It's in our nature that we humans, who among us did not make a mistake in his life, Olivia said. Yes, he died, but it was an accident, Luca said. After moments of silence, the investigator got instantaneous epilepsy. The siblings looked at each other as if they were telling each other what happened to him. What happened to you, detective? Nothing, he said while eating, looking at the plate, and controlling post-epileptic calm. Okay, what is this food? The interrogator said while he was eating. It's a kangaroo, Olivia said. I didn't know, the investigator said. Moments later, silence. Son of a bitch. Did you hear what he said? The investigator said while he was eating, looking at his dish. Who? The two siblings said. I don't know, the interrogator said, swallowing food. May I ask, who taught you to cook? The investigator asked. Is it so much important? Olivia smiled to hide her disapproval for his question. Not much, but, honestly, cooking is a kind of art, you know. And if Francois Vatel is Vincent van Gogh, you are like a college student who cannot pass the painting exam, albeit for the third time. The investigator tried to hide unpleasant sensations in the stomach behind a tight smile. You didn't like the dish, did you? Olivia lowered her gaze in frustration. What's wrong? Luca asked. Nothing. Really, nothing, never mind. By the way, how often do you clean the kitchen? The investigator wanted to make it clear for himself what could lead to all of these strange feelings after the eaten kangaroo. Every fucking day, detective. Luca replied angrily, tapping his palm on the table nervously, glancing sideways at his sister. So often. It seems like you get rid of the traces of the crime. Olivia and her brother exchanged glances. Two donkeys, one more time, the investigator one by one looked into the eyes of the interlocutors. The siblings became angry with him, and Olivia stuttered and stuttered, respect yourself. At that moment, something gurgled and purred in the investigator's stomach. At first, he tried to hide that he needed to use the toilet. Now he had no jokes at all. When too much gas accumulated in the stomach, the investigator tensed, pursed his lips but still violated the appearance of decent society with a loud belch. The whole company froze. Brother and sister because of surprise, and the investigator because of shame. I need a bathroom, flushed face said. No problem. Luca pointed to the bathroom with his long middle finger nastily. The investigator went out of the living room, the trailer slowly, still trying to hide the bitterness of the situation. After leaving the living room, he ran as fast as he could into the bathroom, where instead of an actual toilet, a bucket, claiming to be a toilet bowl, was waiting for him. What the fuck, he swore, sitting on the bucket. They could clearly hear all the sounds of the orchestra created by the investigator in the toilet, grinning and giggling. Practice makes perfect, Olivia said. Come the next time, dear investigator, and maybe you would like our dishes more. But doors of our toilet are always opened for you, Luca added, laughing with revenge. The investigator doubled over, writhing in pain. How can so much shit fit in one person? However, this is a rhetorical question that does not need an answer. When the investigator's stomach was completely emptied, he, having wound a decent piece of toilet paper on his hand, brought the ass to a virgin state. Not wanting to look in the eyes of the witnesses of his shame anymore, he left the house without saying goodbye to guys, without saying a single word to them. The next day the investigator decided to go to a neurologist to find out what is happening to him. After walking for a while, he finally reached the doctor's office and sat in the waiting room. 10 minutes later, the secretary tells him that the doctor is ready to see him. Hello, doctor, said the investigator. I hope you are having a good day. Hello, son, says the doctor, I would wish you a good day too, but if you're here, things probably aren't that well, are they? Yeah, answered the investigator, looking at her shyly. Well then, tell me what's the issue. Well, to be quite honest, I'm not so sure myself. I can't seem to remember anything from what happened at the time where I had an epilepsy attack yesterday. That's quite the peculiar event, said the doctor. Let me run some tests to see what all of this is about, she said. After taking his blood and asking him some questions, she calls him and tells him to sit with her at her desk. Well, it appears that what you suffer from is temporary amnesia as a result of your epilepsy attack, she said, and the investigator was surprised by his tragic situation. As soon as the investigator left the siblings' house, Her Majesty Knight imperceptibly appeared at the threshold. For several hours the world plunged into oblivion, and two guys also fell into oblivion. They looked like pure and innocent babies when their eyelids were closed. Unfortunately, this did not last long. Soon the caring hands of the morning sun touched their closed eyelids. Olivia and Luca woke up. "Do you want to take a walk?" Olivia asked, trying to share the bathroom mirror with Luca. He mumbled something, trying not to drop the toothpaste foam that had accumulated in his mouth into the sink. "Does it mean yes?" Olivia smiled. Luca nodded. The guys met France a couple of 100 meters from the house. The blonde charmingly swayed beautiful curves of her hips, stepping forward. "Oh, gosh. What a fantastic morning." As soon as she noticed Olivia with her brother, a busty woman exclaimed, "I haven't seen you for ages. Have you been away from the city?" Luca wrinkled his brow because he didn't understand at all with whom he had the honor to speak. But it seemed that Olivia knew the girl very well. "France, glad to see you. Indeed, we have not seen each other for a long time." Olivia hugged the girl. France winked at Luca, who scratched the back of his head in confusion and blushed. "Let's drink coffee and talk. I'm sure we have a tremendous amount of news for each other. You guys are probably going to continue your studies. It would be interesting to know where, really." France spoke and gestured like a typical blonde from silly comedies. Neighbors moved to the nearest cafe. Luca was maximally removed from the dialogue. France's deep neckline, revealing the mouth-watering cleft between her breasts, interested him a little bit more than talks about education. France couldn't stop talking. "Just imagine how many prospects could be opened in front of you, prestigious work, cool girls." She poked Luca in the rib with her elbow. "I can easily entertain myself in the bathroom without these cool girls," Luca replied. "Although, come if you want," he grinned. "What could be better than TV? It's okay for me to spend time sitting in our trailer. I will never meet guys like the ones I see on TV in real life," Olivia added. "Everything is straightforward with you." France raised her eyebrows and took the last sip. She licked her lips with delight and threw a sly fox-like glance at Luca. "Think about the idea of continuing your education." France put an end to the dialogue, which was more like a monologue. Finally, someone called her phone and France left her friends. Olivia and Luca, who remained at the table, watched the appetizing butt receding away, rolling from right to left and back. Noticing how eagerly Luca was staring at his neighbor's ass, Olivia slapped him in the face. "What? I was absent-minded," he said. Olivia and Luca came back to the trailer at night. A typical day was going to be finished. They did almost nothing and had utterly no apologies about this fact. This pastime was usual for them. "There is nothing better than not having what to do," Luca used to say. "Open the window, Luca. I want to see those stars shining at our faces from other galaxies." Olivia looked to her brother with tenderness. Luca came up to the window. "I will never leave this place, I will never leave you, Olivia," he whispered, opening the door to outer space, the role of which was played by the old window frame. "Never. I want to believe you. I try to." Luca kisses his sister lightly on her soft lips. "What do you think about the tongue-sucking experience? Let's have a try." Luca sat next to Olivia and kissed her with the tongue. They hugged and passionately dug their lips into each other as if they were afraid that they were doing it for the last time. Suddenly Luca paused and said, "What do you think about entering college?" "What do my ears hear? I can't hear you." "This is the dumbest joke of all the dumb jokes I've ever heard." Olivia wrinkled her brow in confusion and laughed nervously. "But it is not a joke. Do you remember all those silly American teen comedies?" Luca asked. "And?" Olivia moved closer to her brother and looked directly into his eyes. "College is not about books and memorizing complex formulas. Studying in college is about partying, promiscuous sex. Students don't sit on campus all day long. They rest, take illegal drugs, and have anal sex. This is all about college, you know." "Are you sure? Is not it only a tiny sweet part of student life, shown in films?" I really do not think so, Olivia. Trust me. Okay, Luca, yes. If you go to college, I go with you. But, please, swear on your life, there will never be any other woman in your life. Only Olivia. Look at me and say, you will love only me till the end of your fucking life. She held his cheeks and looked with large, like a puppy begging for a bone, eyes. Tears welled up in her eyes. Somewhere high in the sky, stars were born and died. The second hand on the large wall clock seemed to run faster than usual. And two, who loved each other with forbidden love, froze opposite each other and heard each other breathing. I will not leave you. I will never leave you. Is this such a problem? Is it difficult? Why are you crying? Why do you want me to swear? But I swear. I swear on my life. Millions of galaxies have witnessed this clan. Olivia finally calmed down and leaned her head on her brother's shoulder, closing her eyes. Olivia and Luca fell asleep and slept until the morning in this position. In the morning, Luca and Olivia went to a neighbor to inform her that they were ready to go to college. The brother and sister were confident that the neighbor would bear all the financial costs associated with training. It is good that France has brought up the topic of a college education. It was kind of her to suggest this to us, Olivia said, while the steps of France were heard outside the front door and were getting closer and closer. Come in, how glad I am to see you. It seems that the silly smile of a 15-year-old schoolgirl has never been erased from this young, precocious, and lustful face, expressing a clear lack of a strong man nearby. Or, at least, not the whole man, but some of his sexiest parts. Olivia and Luca told France about their plans for the future. The neighbor smiled. She was pleased with their decision. I have always had a talent for persuasion, France laughed, throwing one slender leg covered with nylon stockings over the other. How do you plan to fund your education? I have a friend who is recruiting remote employees for his online store. You could work for him. Work? Luca choked and almost dropped a glass of water. No, France, it will be fine for us if you, as an adult and responsible person, devoid of financial burden, pay for our education. France's right eye twitched. Finding no answer, she burst out laughing. The fact is that recently I paid much for medical insurance, and I was left entirely without money. You will have to think about your future for yourself. Olivia, although I am older than you, I have always felt wisdom and maturity in you. Otherwise, we would not be able to make such a strong friendship. I want to say that you will be able to resolve this issue. And you will succeed, too, Luca. Those words sounded like an excuse, but they sounded pretty peremptory. Why then did you ask us about college? Didn't that mean you were willing to pay for everything? Luca was surprised. It was just a question. France shook her head in bewilderment. France got up from the sofa and began to collect the empty glasses from the table unobtrusively. She took them to the kitchen and then, looking at the clock thoughtfully, stated, "It's already 4, wow. It's time to get ready for the gym." So, this bitch has money for the gym, but not for us. Luca waved his hands when he and his sister left the house of France. I'll cut her and eat her, make dinner out of her, Olivia said. Did you notice how tense and angry she is? This is all from sexual dissatisfaction. Did you know she has lived without having sex for 5 years? If I lived for 5 years without sex, I would have come in my pants long ago, Luca answered. The twins didn't spend much time thinking. They went from one door to another like beggars. Oh, holy shit. I was waiting. Did you bring me my money, bastards? Mumbled a drunken, filthy man when one of the doors opened. Olivia and Luca looked at him, shocked. No, but we are not against if you give us some, Mr. Whatever your name is, Olivia smiled. The man listened carefully, leaned against the doorframe, and slowly slid down. A childlike pacification traced his swollen face. Okay, Olivia shrugged. They moved on. Olivia sprayed herself and Luca with a cheap perfume that she always carried in her bag to overcome the fume smell. They went to another house, knocked on the door, and a baby girl appears unconcerned about the arrival of the siblings, running towards the garden of the house to two more children. The door was open. Luca pushed her forward, and the siblings saw three more children inside. Their mother was asleep from them, sitting on the floor with her back on the velvet sofa. Her young son was standing on his feet, feeding on her large, plump breast and never leaving his mother's breast that was fully exposed from his mouth. 6 children. 6. Maybe we can collect some money and bring it to her? Luca chuckled. Don't be so sure that she lives worse than you. She doesn't need your handouts, judging by the house and garden. What else has this life prepared for us? What else is hiding behind the doors of these fucking houses? Why did you spray me with that fucking lavender, Olivia? Luca was indignant as they walked to the next door. It's not lavender. This is an old perfume that I stole from our neighbor, old Joe. I do not know what this is. But this is definitely not lavender, to be sure. Olivia winked. Who's there? A man cried from the next door. We want. Luca began. My money. The door was opened by an ugly man wearing only red underpants. He had thick hair on his chest. We need some money to cover educational fees in the college, Luca said. This whore left a year ago. No sex since then. I'll only give you money if you fuck me. We're sorry your girlfriend left, but... Olivia tried to continue. Nicholas was not a girl. He was a man. He was the strongest man in my life. The man burst into tears and slammed the door. After their hustle research, they were inside the house of a university professor. How can you help us, Mr. Angelini? Is your salary big enough to share it with us? Olivia pretended to be kind and sweet. There exists an official way to find the money for education. It is big enough, the man answered, but I am not used to helping people in such an ineffective way. I prefer to explain to you how to get a scholarship. Luca raised his fist as if he had scored a goal against his opponent while hiding his crazy joy. Unfortunately, the scholarship only seemed like a free ticket to the college. But everything was not so easy, to be honest. The meeting with the college administration was arranged on the ongoing Tuesday. Olivia and Luca were waiting for that patiently. Finally, the day has come. What about the specialization? Their educational manager, a fat woman with a short dark hairstyle, asked. Could we try some psychological testing that would help us to understand ourselves better? Olivia answered. Do you want a test to find out which major is appropriate for you? It seemed like the woman was not surprised. So, Luca nodded his face in agreement. The woman asked Olivia and Luca to follow her and take seats at computer tables. After a while, guys had a no-standard test with interesting and controversial questions. Their results were sent to the email address of the educational manager. Criminal behavior analysis specialization, the dark-haired woman stated, business-like pouting narrow as threads lips. Olivia and Luca were amazed and excited. The manager invited them to the specialization professor's office. 2 recruits. According to the test results, they are the ones you need as students, a woman said with notes of pride. Let's check it. The gray-haired man invited guys to the room, where the scene of the crime was recreated. Wow, Olivia and Luca looked around with admiration. Yes, wow. The professor mocked. A talented middle-aged person brings girls to his bathroom, rapes them, then kills them, cuts them, and then throws them as bait for the fish he will catch in the lake near his home. The professor grinned. You have 15 minutes to look around and tell me what has happened here and why. Olivia and Luca examined the bloody walls of the bathroom. It didn't take them even 5 minutes to reach a verdict. They discussed something in a whisper, and then Olivia began to speak. We reached a common opinion, she said. It was a psychopath. His mother, probably, tortured him and imprisoned him in the bathroom. So, he was searching for girls who resembled his mother to punish her. Interesting, the professor tilted his head and stepped aside. He stood alone, thought, and wrote something on papers with the results of computer tests of Olivia and Luca, and then returned to the two siblings. Criminal Mind was stated in papers when guys looked at them. They were really confused. We are sure there should be some mistake in the results. We completely disagree with them. Luca was full of power to argue with the professor. Yes, we are not criminals, added his sister. No, stop it immediately, the professor put his hands on the shoulders of potential students. He waited few seconds to let Olivia and Luca calm down and continued. Welcome to Criminal Behavior Analysis Specialization. It does not mean that you are necessarily criminals, the professor said. At the same time, it is clear that you, students, are very talented. Oh, we are not sure, Olivia said nervously, scratching the earlobe. You can, of course, refuse. It's your right. But I insist that once in my hands, you have come to the right place. So, what's your final decision? The professor asked. Olivia and Luca stepped aside and conferred for a short time. After that, they returned to the professor and gave their consent to study. That's great, the professor smiled. What can be better than a bit of success? Feeling cool and successful, two siblings returned to the trailer. Fuck. Now I know what winners of Olympic Games feel like, Luca breathed out, laying on the pillow and looking at the ceiling. Luca was sleeping, like a child, barely smiling with corners of his lips. What do they feel like? Olivia asked, but nobody answered. Suddenly, such a loud Olivia's scream broke the silence apart. Luca jumped on the bed. He saw his sister, beating in agony, first. After, he noticed a long snake leaving the room through the window. Perhaps, it entered the place through the same window opened to let oxygen come in. I am here, with you. Keep calm, just try to. The brother said in a trembling voice, looking at the snakebite on his sister's neck. He immediately put the puzzles in his head and understood what was happening. I am too young. Make me stay alive, Luca. Please. Olivia screamed while she was crying. Take me to the nearest hospital. I don't feel my limbs and feel weakness and pain in the chest, Luca. Luca took Olivia to the hospital fast. The rest of the night remained incoherent flashes of despair in his memory. Heart failure, a woman in a short white medical gown said. At the same time, she was checking Olivia's heartbeat in a hurry, taking Olivia away from Luca. While Luca stands outside the room, watching what is happening through the glass window, suddenly her heart stopped. He couldn't control himself, so he fell to the ground from shock and cried loudly. Luca was not a kind of religious guy, but he prayed that day. Maybe, he did it even for the first time, but still. It took many hours to finally hear precious words from one of the nurses. Congratulations, her heart is beating again, but we will take her to the operating room to remove the poison from her body. I can talk and sit to her, can't I? I can sleep here. I don't mind. I don't have anyone other in this world. Luca asked while he was heartbroken. Unfortunately, no. Not now. Please, you are not allowed to stay here, go home and come back later. I hope she will be okay. The nurse was strict and adamant. Luca left the hospital. He slept like a homeless person behind the hospital garden, waiting for the gates to open to check on his sister's health. He came back every day but was not allowed to visit his sister. Finally, one sunny morning the typical scenario was changed. Follow me, the nurse said. They walked along a long corridor full of human lives, barely holding on to life, ready to unclench their fingers, willing to let go of life and rush into the sky. In few minutes, they entered a small room. There were only two people inside. One of them was Olivia. Olivia smiled instead of answering. Welcome back to life. Luca cried happily. They were sitting next to each other in silence. Do you know what? Olivia said suddenly, I had an near-death experience. I saw you and all these people around my body. I could fly and appear in any place I wanted. Did you see anything special? Luca moved closer. I entered a tunnel and saw the light of the heavens and the earth. At the bottom, There was a spiral base on which a glass lamp leaned. It became like an atomic planet, and an unknown tree grew from underneath it. A bright light that could not be touched by fire shone. I suspect it's the light of the Liberator. Luca reclined the chair and contemplated her words. After that, he left the hospital. He visited Olivia every day. She felt better and better. Soon, Olivia came back to the trailer to everyday life. Time was going on, and two siblings lived their life. They lived it as two ordinary teenagers, but only pretending to be them. Somewhere in the north of the city, the interrogator suffered from bouts of stomach pain. The day of visiting two siblings in the trailer was fateful for him. He felt tired of counting cases of hospitalizing. The hospital administrator knew him as well as some close friends. "Have you eaten something special?" the nurse asked when he was delivered to the hospital for the first time. "Your analysis is not good." "I don't think so. Nothing special," he said. "But your analysis tells that you did. Please, think again. Try to recall." The woman was set to argue. "Let me think." He waited for a while. "Oh, yes. You are right. Kangaroo meat. I ate it for the first time in my life and had been suffering diarrhea already then." He suddenly screamed. "You should be more careful. Not being a young guy, you should keep a diet. And no kangaroo meat anymore, please. And yes, it will take some time to prepare the conclusion on you," the nurse concluded. In just 1 week, the man visited the hospital several times, as no home remedies helped him cope with the pain. He learned the terrible truth during one of these visits. "We studied a sample from your stomach. The doctor said it was not kangaroo meat," looking into the patient's eyes with curiosity. "Continue," the interrogator said. "The meat was of human origin," the doctor said confidently. The interrogator was shocked. He jumped up and ran to the toilet, from where his moans were heard for a long time. He was vomiting. All information was immediately transferred to the police station. A couple of minutes later, somewhere on the other side of town, a police officer was shouting at someone on the phone, "Immediately. You hear? Prepare to capture the object immediately. Let me know afterward what else you find inside." I knew these two bastards were hiding something. I had a gut feeling. Soon, the police were already breaking into the trailer where Olivia and Luca lived. "Everyone should stay in their places. That's an order," shouted armed members of the armed forces. "What's happening?" exclaimed frightened Olivia, falling to the floor. Deep down, she certainly knew what the matter was. "That's all," whispered Luca, looking into his sister's eyes, which were filled with tears. Everything that was happening seemed to Luca and Olivia to be a real injustice. "Take a look," one of the policemen gasped, terrified. He opened the door of the refrigerator, which was densely packed with bones and flesh humanity. Olivia's and her brother's hands were already handcuffed by that time. Olivia lay on the cold floor, her face pressed against the rough stubble of the carpet. She closed her eyes. A single phrase was spinning in her mind: "I must wake up." Strangely, the nightmare didn't end. The fact that what was happening was a reality was also understandable because the handcuffs digging into her wrists caused unbearable pain to her. "We have found compelling evidence of the siblings' involvement," the police officer said in a wireless. "I hope you understand what you have done, bastards," the rude man grinned, jabbing the gun roughly between Luca's ribs. Luca and Olivia, handcuffed, were being escorted out of the trailer when Luca tried to break free at the front door. "I won't give up," Luca growled, looking at the policeman like an angry animal. Then the policeman knocked the guy to the floor and put the knee on his neck. "Please. I can't breathe." Luca hardly could say something. His face became red. The world around was going to disappear. Lou almost passed out. "Get your hands off him, you freak," Olivia said and kicked the cop in the back using the last of her strength. The man flew his nose into the floor slab. Help arrived quickly. A moment later, several muscular guys in uniform were already beating Louis and Olivia with police batons. They were ruthless. Each blow was fiercer than the last. Luca and Olivia could smell and taste blood. The police stopped beating when the faces of the accused barely resembled human faces. Olivia was crying. Tears, mixing with blood, ceased to be tears. But they represent all the pain and bitterness that a person can only incarnate in the physical world. Sometime, everything must be ended. I can't be hurt forever. No pain. Pain is an invention and a trick of my mind, thought Olivia, trying to drown out the torment. Finally, the brother and sister were lifted to their feet and pushed out of the trailer. Luca walked in front, and Olivia followed. "Sweetass," whispered one of the cops, swiping the baton between the girl's buttocks. "Go forward," the man added, pushing the handcuffed girl forward with the baton, which stopped in the middle of Olivia's ass. "Get your hands off." "Hands off." Olivia snorted. "If you don't shut up, I'll put it in your mouth," the cheeky policeman replied. "I always knew that cops are the main evil in our country. You are lawbreakers. You are thieves and criminals," Olivia whispered as she walked out into the street. The bright light hit her eyes like hundreds of knives. Olivia and Luca were handcuffed. The door of the car was closed. It seemed like no way to escape existed. "Do you know what other prisoners do with people like you?" "You don't," the policeman said, choking on his saliva. "What?" Olivia asked sadly. "What I did with your ass, whore. Would you like me to remind you?" He laughed. Olivia did not answer. The policeman, who took place near the driver, opened the window to light a cigarette. He did it with such pleasure as if it were a cigarette after unforgettable sex. Suddenly, an unknown bullet penetrates the policeman's forehead. Holy shit! The driver's face twisted into a grimace. "What is happening?" he cried. But someone was cruel and adamant. This time, blood splattered all over the car, although the sound of the gunshot was not heard. A killer was a professional one. Bodies of police officers were filling the interior of the car with blood. "Does God hear my praying?" Luca smiled. "No, but I did." A stranger opened the door of the car in the mask. He had keys in his hand and freed brother and sister. "Who are you?" Olivia stared at the stranger. He took off his mask, which covered the face of the shepherd. "But how?" Luca started, but the shepherd didn't let him continue. "No time, if you still want to live." "We have no time," he interrupted the guy. "You and I, we should change our clothes, quickly. Put on the clothes of the policeman." The gang changed their clothes. Then it was almost impossible to recognize them. New documents. The shepherd gave the siblings fake ID cards and advised them by riding a police car after the police bodies were thrown out of the vehicle. "Where will we go now?" Olivia asked. She felt like a mighty tornado burst into her everyday life and smashed everything to hell. "We will go far away from here, to the place where nobody will catch us and bring us to prison. Don't be afraid. I do know what I do. I always know it." The hoarse voice of the shepherd sounded confident. New places and new life, Olivia smiled with some hope. New places and old life, Olivia. We are not going to escape ourselves, Luca added. Why did you help us? Luca asked, looking at the road through the dirty window. It was curved and confusing, and he could not determine its direction. The road reminded Lucas of his complex life. I understand you, the shepherd answered. You are living your life, doing something, and suddenly everything completely changes. Many years ago, I was a famous policeman among women. I enjoyed this life and, let me say, the life enjoyed me. Only one evening had destroyed everything. I made only one small mistake during the neutralization operation. He killed my police comrades, my wife deserted me that day. It was the end and the beginning. My new life was about to start that day. Luca and Olivia listened to the man carefully. Somehow, they could understand his thrilling story. I remember, Olivia shuddered. What do you mean? Luca was distracted from observing the endless road and turned his attention to his sister. We had seen you in the woods eating people. Luca, do you remember? Olivia asked. Her brother thought for a while and nodded. Why do you do this thing? Olivia continued asking questions. Which this? The shepherd Matthew emphasized the last word. Eating people, why? Olivia clarified. This is an old vengeful ritual, and I enjoy doing this. And I have been a serial killer for 17 years, you know. Cops still can't find me. Hundreds of them cannot see me. They said that I am stupid after the last failed operation. Okay. Anyway, I am clever enough to confuse them. Matthew answered. Those people. These people, who are they? Who are your victims? Luca asked. Most of them are cops. Bad cops. Cops for whom justice is nothing more than a word from the dictionary. They deserve it. It seemed like Matthew became angrier and angrier while talking about cops. Do you regret something? Olivia's questions were unpredictable. Yes. I am sorry to have wiped out so few of these cops from the face of the earth. I must try harder. Matthew answered. Up ahead was a police checkpoint. With a baton and a pistol hanging by the policeman's side, he stretched out his arm in a gesture for the car to stop. Slowly coming to a halt, Matthew held up his hand against the eye-piercing sunlight pouring in from the windshield before the officer was standing beside the window. Leaning forward, he ran his eyes over the car's occupants. Can I see some ID? He asked in his professional, robotic tone. Sure, said Matthew as he fumbled for his wallet. Handing over the IDs to the police officer, they watched the folding flesh on his forehead as he examined the cards. He was taking longer than it should have. Wait here, he instructed before making his way to a fellow officer. He was still holding their IDs in his hand. Hurriedly whispering to him, the officer pointed in their direction with obnoxious smirks pasted on their faces. That's not good, thought Matthew. Getting back into character, the officers regained their composure before walking back to the car. The new one lowered his head and gave them all a suspicious look before stopping at Matthew. Is your brother's name Charlie? He inquired. As his ID was forged, Matthew quickly understood what was happening. His heart thumped in his chest, but keeping his cool, he tried to blow off the whole thing with a laugh. Yeah, that idiot is my brother, all right, he said casually. Instantly, he got the response he was looking for as the police officer threw back his head and laughed his lungs out. Thought as much, he said through tears of mirth. Well, there is one personal and private question I would like to ask, said the policeman with a mischievous glint in his eye. Bracing for the worst, Matthew smiled and said, Sure, ask away. Does your brother still love to suck? Asked the officer with a lustful expression. Matthew was caught by surprise by this peculiar question. Likes to suck what? He asked defiantly with furrowed eyebrows. Instead of answering the question, the policeman kept his quiet, with the twisted lips stuck on his face. He scrutinized Matthew's face, looking into his eyes for signs of any deception. But he found none and finally decided that he really didn't have a clue what he was saying. The tables instantly turned as the policeman realized the embarrassing situation created by his question. Nothing, you can go, he said, finally clearing his throat and handing back the IDs. Relieved, Matthew revved the engine back to life before pulling out of the checkpost. A cloud of dust lingered in the air behind the car as it drove away down the road. Inside, Matthew glanced at the rearview mirror. The engine hummed as the car rolled on. The policeman still had his eyes fixed on the preceding vehicle. Washed in the sunlight emanating from heaven's fiery furnace, the policeman was strolling about in the street. Matthew saw embarrassment etched over the policeman's every facial feature in his rearview mirror. The trio went on to try to obliterate evidence of the crime. Luca gave Olivia and Matthew a shovel and started to dig a hole in the ground. After hours of digging to where the three were covered in mud from head to toe, they had a spot to bury the police car. Olivia then took the key and drove the car with the loath inside near the hole, where they then pushed it by hand until it fell. After the car was ultimately in the spot, they took off the police's clothes and threw them into the hole. They then took back their shovel and coved the car. Matthew took his car parked from an unknown place. They continued their trip in silence. Olivia even fell asleep for few minutes. She leaned against the door, sticking her ass to the side. Olivia had changed it to a long t-shirt. She saw strange dreams, faces of people, their eyes were closed, and birds sitting on the windows of burning houses. She felt anxious after she woke up. Suddenly she understood that night was going to visit them, but it was not clear where to spend it. I would suggest buying a trailer for us. In my opinion, trailers are a sacred and wonderful thing. I have enough money. What do you think? Matthew seemed to read the girl's mind. You are right, Olivia yawned widely. Matthew was distracted from the road. The girl's open lips riveted his attention. Trailer is such a sacred thing, Luca added. With joy, with all his foolishness, he slapped the girl's ass, leaving a red mark on it. Oh, Luca, Olivia looked sadly on her ass. What if I do the same with you? Luca started to laugh. There was a shop not far from the highway where used trailers were sold. Big and small, classic colored and hippie style. There were so many of them. Can I help you? A big one for the whole family? The intrusive assistant swooped in like a kite. Could we just walk here alone for a while, please? We need time to look around, Olivia answered. The assistant left the company for few minutes but came back soon. Here is the catalog with our big trailers. They will be suitable for such a nice family. He held out a battered magazine. The magazine cover featured a half-naked woman standing near the trailer. The marketing specialist who created this masterpiece probably wanted to make buyers think that buying an expensive trailer will inevitably make them get such a beautiful woman. The cover was also stained with traces of sperm. Shove this magazine up your ass, you idiot, said Luca, annoyed by the obsession of the seller who mistook their company for a family. This was, at least, not logical. What rudeness! The sales assistant, thin as a skeleton, was offended. That one, Matthew decided to interrupt the meaningless conversation. The trailer the shepherd pointed to did not look like a new one. At the same time, it was big. It seemed like every member of their team could find their own corner inside. The assistant showed the customers inside the trailer. Small but nice kitchen, with enough space for cooking, cozy living room with a large sofa and an armchair that could be transformed into a sleeping place. Our new house, Olivia smiled, looking around. Let's buy it, please, she asked the shepherd, squealing with delight like a little girl. It is impossible to refuse a woman. We will buy it, Matthew answered. The friends continued their journey in a new trailer. The past remained further and further. The future was getting closer and closer. Finally, the trailer stopped. Going outside, Olivia, Luca, and the shepherd saw an incredible view. A river ran into infinity with water as clear as tears at their very feet. The trees surrounded the river like soldiers who wanted to protect nature from human encroachments, naive soldiers. The trailer stayed nearby. A group of friends sat down at the very edge of the river with their legs hanging down. The water enveloped their bare feet with warmth and tenderness. I wonder how much time we have for life, Olivia said thoughtfully, looking at the distorted reflection of her face on the water surface. As much as necessary, not more and not less, Luca answered. Everything is simple for you, the girl noted with sadness in her voice. How should it be? We will all die someday. And nobody knows when it can or must happen. You are wasting your time on meaningless reflections. God will make the decision. If he exists, Luca reasoned. God is the eternal and infinite truth according to Spinoza, not me. Does the eternal and infinite have so little to do that it will find time to determine the date of my death, having done it justly? Olivia wondered. The God. Why do I hear about God so often from people like us? Matthew grinned. Because we may have achieved justice. Olivia was offended by Matthew's tone. However, she agreed with him. Unfortunately, Matthew did not have time to answer. He saw an angry dog running towards him from the forest. The dog growled, bared his teeth. Foam scattered from his mouth in all directions. Olivia, Luca, and Matthew didn't move. The dog was standing by. Suddenly he darted from his place and pounced on the misfortune, grabbing his hand. God! God! Matthew shouted so loudly that the birds left the branches of the trees and flew away. Olivia and Luca ran to the trailer. They grabbed the first sharp objects that they could find. They turned out to be a knife and an axe. The dog was ready to rip out the whole Matthew's hand or maybe eat the entire man. It gnawed at his forearm. The man continued to scream. Olivia and Luca rushed to save their friend. He was stabbed severally and hit with an axe. They crucified him. Left of him was nothing but sprawling parts. Olivia and Luca took the shepherd and moved him inside the trailer. The shepherd turned out to be not a light guy. "Don't die, man," Luca clenched his teeth, trying not to drop the body. The shepherd moaned and writhed in pain. "Give me the phone," the shepherd's voice was barely audible. Olivia did what he asked. "Benjamin?" The shepherd calls a pharmacist he knows with a history of illegal drug smuggling. Another pharmacist pulled out the phone from Benjamin. "Yes, how can I help?" A gentle female voice came from the phone. "A dog bit me," the shepherd answered. "You urgently need a rabies injection and pain relievers. Please write down our address and ask someone to come here. Otherwise, you will have to call an ambulance," said the woman and dictated the pharmacy's address. Of course, calling an ambulance was not part of the shepherd's plans. Whatever, but the company was on the run. They could be identified. Luca wasted no time, he went to the pharmacy. Luca decided to walk and do it alone, not to put the whole team in danger. Luca entered the pharmacy wearing a medical muzzle so that no one would recognize him. "These." Luca handed Benjamin a piece of the paper with the names of drugs and syringes. "Do you have a prescription?" asked the pharmacist. It was a woman, nearly 40 years old, with the stern look of a high school teacher. "But on the phone, we were not told anything about the recipe." Luca was indignant. "Oh," the woman rolled her eyes. "Our trainees always do everything wrong. We'll talk to them, but the recipe is needed," she stated and called Benjamin up. "My friend is dying." Luca was angry. "Then you need to call an ambulance." The woman smiled a nasty smile. "I will not sell you drugs without a prescription." Then Luca took a small folding knife from his pocket and held it to the saleswoman's throat. "You will sell me these medicines, or I will take them myself." He pressed the knife on the throat harder. Okay. Benjamin pretends he's afraid and wants to save her. He collected everything Luca needed in a black bag and gave it to Luca without taking a dime from him. Luca ran away fast, he didn't want cops to overtake him. There was the smell of broccoli soup in the trailer. Luca found Olivia feeding Matthew. "Where have you been all this time, damn you?" Matthew nagged from Luca. "Whore, she wasn't going to give me the prescription. She was a slut testing my cock, that bitch," Luca justified. Luca approached Matthew and pulled everything he needed out of the bag. "Stab me forcefully with the syringe," Matthew said. Luca hesitated to stab Matthew forcefully. "Do it, son of bitch, do it," Matthew insists. Luca struck him with the injection that numbed the friend. Matthew felt immediate relief. The pain subsided. Olivia danced frolicking, dancing in steady circles in place while her big ass was shaking like cream. Night crept imperceptibly. Olivia decided to take a swim in the river. She couldn't sleep after everything that had happened during the day. "That's so good," she whispered to herself, setting the flashlight on the outside of the trailer. Olivia plunged into the water, throwing off all her clothes. "So good," the girl breathed. As if all the pain, all the fear that had accumulated during the day, came out. But this feeling was not destined to last long. She felt that she was not alone in the water. Olivia turned around slowly. "Help! Help someone! Please!" she screamed when she saw the crocodiles back in the water. It came closer. Almost immediately, lights came on in the windows of the trailer. Luca and the shepherd ran out into the outside only in their sleeping shorts. Matthew grabbed his gun, running out of the trailer. He knew that Olivia wouldn't scream for no particular reason. The shepherd was right. He shot the crocodile as soon as he saw him. The danger has been removed. "Hold on, baby," Matthew said as he and Luca were pulling Olivia out of the water. The girl trembled all over and could hardly breathe. A panic attack swept over her head. Shit, Luca was angry when he saw Olivia's stomach hurt. It was not a grievous wound. Fortunately, the guys managed to come to the rescue in time. They carried her inside the trailer. Matthew began to look thoughtful as he stepped aside and returned with a small white jar in his hand. It was healing ointment, kept for a special occasion like this. He touched Olivia's stomach with his fingers, and she soon calmed down. The injury began to feel better. "Magic," Olivia laughed softly. "We were afraid for you," he whispered. "Long life." Luca praises her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Matthew bent down to Olivia and kissed her cheek. "You should know," Olivia whispered back. "What?" Matthew grinned. "When you raped me from my ass, do you remember? I was pretending. I played the part of a good girl, but I liked it. I was not against anal sex with a stranger. Since then, I've often thought of you, introducing us together." Olivia's voice was sweet as honey. It beckoned the shepherd like flowers beckon bees. He closed his eyes and inhaled her scent. He was surprised at her confession. At the same time, it aroused him. The shepherd gently bit Olivia's lip. Olivia opened her mouth and entered his mouth with her tongue. "I can't wait any more." Luca clasps his fingers with her fingers, kisses her cheek, forehead, and lips. "You didn't just appear in my life with no reason, lovely creature," the shepherd whispered. "In our lives," Luca corrected him. Olivia looked from one man to another. "I think I love you too. I love and desire you passionately. I know the world is different. I know that we are living a different life. But what can I do with myself? What should I do with my passion? Why am I so attracted to you too? We are an evolutionary series of animals over millions of years," Matthew replied. "We are just animals in the fields. We cannot decide how we should be and how we should not be. Do you understand?" "Yes, we became like lovebirds kissing each other," Luca added. "And I'm to your lioness," Olivia concluded. "We will be together. Now we will always be together. 3 of us. Forever," Matthew promised. He looked into Olivia's eyes. His look was a human lion look. His obsession was seizing her as if the sky wanted to apply to the earth. "She is sitting on her knee. Take off their pants." She stuck her nose to smell the sweat of their panties. "Oh, I lost my mind for both of you. I can sacrifice my life for you both." She became crazy and hungry for them. She took off their panties and the top of their penis kissed several times, so she sucked them. She became horny. "Sit on the sofa," Matthew said. She sat, opening both legs, while Matthew played her pussy with his tongue, and Luca kissed her from her mouth. Olivia is at the height of her desire and wants someone to mash her. "I want you both to sleep with me at the same time." Luca sat on the sofa with a bar up, and his sister sat with her backside on it. And Matthew completed the presto. He inserted his hard cock into Olivia's pussy. Her face and body are glowing whiter and luminous. She was savoring with them with an unspeakable pleasure for words, so she had the orgasm several times. When they were all finished, their nerves calmed down from the pain of real life. If we could look at the trailer from above that night, we would see 2 tiny windows with lights on, the trailer, 3 chairs by the trailer, and a small coffee table. We would, of course, think that there is a family or good friends are living inside. Friends who decided to talk about life in the middle of the night. After all, everyone associates the light in the windows with home comfort, warmth, something light. They slept together in the hibernation of innocent cats. The morning of the next day came too early, as it usually does after an unforgettable night full of love. The large windows of the accommodation allowed sunlight to penetrate inside the rooms and wake all its residents. Then Matthew cleaned the windows of the trailer and went in. "I'm so tired," Matthew said as he was sitting at the dining table while Luca was eating breakfast. "This is all from having sex in my sister's ass," Luca said. Silence began, and Luca thought for a moment. "We have to earn money for a living?" Luca asked. "Yes, damn it, you're right." Matthew choked on a piece of goat cheese. He began to cough loudly and blushed and then bent over the plate and spat out the culprit of his own failed death. "Cheese," he added. "Do you offer to sell cheese?" Luca smiled. "I hope not produced in such a vile way." He winced. There was a pause, interrupted by Olivia. A short towel, worn after a shower, barely covered the sweetest parts of her feminine body. "The shops are full of cheese, we will not be able to compete with large producers." The girl sat down at the table, hugging her knees to her chest. Her knees were brought together, and her feet were spread wide enough so that Luca and Matthew could see the red and open petals of her bud, wet after a shower. "How much would we get paid for an hour in this hot crack?" Matthew looked at the crotch of his new mistress with hungry eyes. "Bastard," Olivia got angry and threw a piece of bread at the shepherd. "It's a sin." "Leave the food," Luca interjected. "I don't pretend to be a saint," the girl smirked. "Yes, you are not a saint. And I am very glad about that," Matthew laughed. His mouth was open wide, exposing a whole row of disgusting spoiled teeth. "What about bread? I could bake it, and you could deliver it to customers," Olivia suddenly suggested. "I ate your bread once. You can't feed people with this poison," Luca raised an eyebrow. "Yes, you don't need to bake bread with these hands, they were created for another kind of job." Matthew put his hand into his pants and put his friend, which was already cramped, in a more comfortable position. "Sewing, knitting. Do you have any ideas, smart guys? You only know how to criticize women. Is it the only talent?" Olivia looked a little bit upset. Luca lit a cigar and looked out of the window thoughtfully. A small bird was shitting on the windowsill, which he washed in the morning. "Shit," Matthew mumbled. "Don't worry, it will take a few minutes to rewash it," Luca commented. "No. Let it be. The cigar is a piece of shit." Luca winced at first, and then a spark appeared in his eyes. "I found it." "What?" Matthew was surprised. "We can create an innovative smoking product," Luca answered. The friends spent the next few days creating an ideal project for business. With a consulting prescription, they bought from a chemical engineer. "Are leaves of chamomile soft enough?" Matthew asked. "They are soft and dry. I am wet and angry." Olivia laughed, looking through the window. "What is our next step?" "Go to the kitchen and fry them," Matthew answered. "You could do it yourself, couldn't you?" Olivia was surprised. "You are a woman. You have to do everything related to the kitchen." It was the second day when Matthew acted like an asshole towards Olivia. But she was not in a mood to argue and completed the task. "I am a woman, but we are living in the modern world, stupid man," Olivia grumbled to herself. After frying, she waited a little, and then gently and diligently kneaded the leaves to rid them of excess moisture. "Our future business looks like a piece of shit," Matthew stated while sprinkling the leaves on a linen towel to dry. "And so do I." Luca was woken up by Matthew's monologue. It was too loud. "You are right. And, by the way, why are you sleeping while we are working?" Olivia threw the small yellow pillow with some strange white spots to her brother's face. He made a wry face. They spent a nice day, each of them fully demonstrated neurotic qualities. It was, of course, impossible to proceed to the next step before the leaves became completely dry. However, each of the guys came up to the towel again and again. Olivia broke all records. She stood by the windowsill, looking at the towel, for about 5 minutes. Could this really speed up the process somehow? No, of course, no. The next day was the most long-awaited day in their lives. We have to prepare the room, Olivia said, opening all the windows in the living room to create ventilation. And what about the temperature? Unsuccessful fermentation will lead to moldy. It is important. No, it is necessary to control the temperature. It will be done with the help of this. Luca took a mobile phone out of his pocket. Nice. I hope you know what you do. Olivia smiled. I swear, I know, Luca answered. You have become more and more religious, bro, Olivia said sarcastically. Don't you really see this golden halo over my head? Luca laughed. The leaves were stacked neatly on the living room floor. Then Olivia diligently sprinkled them with a mixture of water and honey. The girl tried so hard that the joints of her fingers turned red and began to hurt. If you could be such a willing worker while doing some other things with your hands, sweetie, Matthew commented thoughtfully. Olivia ignored his words. Olivia added only a few drops of honey in a cup of water, but the air filled with a sweet scent. Olivia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. These lovely notes reminded her of a distant fictional world. Then there was still no need to earn money, work or have sex with anyone. She knew neither death nor despair. And the house always smelled of honey inside. Rest in peace. Luca covered the leaves with the blanket. 1, 2, 3. 60 days passed before the process of fermentation was completed. On the 61st day, leaves were dried by the shepherd and compressed to form bricks. The time to create the smoking blend came. The base herb was mullein. It made up 40% of the mixture. 40% chamomile tea leaves as both a modifier and astringent, and 10% peppermint as the flavor. Is this not a lethal mixture? Olivia asked in a bid to cheer everyone up. Mullein is a full-bodied, smooth medicinal herb known to treat tuberculosis, bronchitis, and earache. It is composed of saponins, iridoids, flavonoids, vitamin C, and minerals. It will never lead to death, Olivia. Luca said proudly. But what about the relaxing effect? It is much more important than health for smokers. Olivia slumped into a chair and looked at the ceiling thoughtfully. The chamomile leaves, Olivia. They are our key to relaxation and satisfaction. Luca became even more proud of his brilliant knowledge. The grasses, freed from stems, roots, and other excesses, were mixed into a single mixture. We have to grind them. Olivia, would you like to do this? Matthew asked. Me? Why? Is it not a too difficult job for a girl? You or Luca could do it, the girl answered. No, you are used to working with your hands. Please, stop arguing. Matthew gave Olivia a small wooden bowl and a large stone grinding tool. The girl worked hard, and the process took no longer than an hour. The mixture was laid out on quality paper, the edges glued together with a mix of water and honey. Our future is ready, Luca concluded. I would like to trust you. I hope that you are right, Olivia added. After that, days later, Matthew was reading the newspaper the whole morning. Olivia and Luca came home and dumped a pile of money in front of his nose right on the dining table. Fuck you. Fuck them all. Look at this. Luca was happier than ever. Olivia was dancing around the table. Beautiful dress twisted in dance, exposing graceful hips. What is that? Matthew couldn't believe his eyes. Our future. Here our future is. Olivia continued dancing while speaking. Our product has high sales figures, Luca said. And it is only the first day of active distribution of products. Can you? No. Just try to imagine what is going on. They will spread information about our perfect cigars among friends and families. This heap of money will soon become several times more, but for now, I propose not to stop at the achieved success. Wow, man. Fantastic. Matthew was inspired and threw the newspaper on the table. What was your strategy? We were walking around the city, visiting different places where young people like to hang around. We gave them cards with our contacts and the product description as we pretended to be the company's happy customers. We just spread the rumor about high-quality cigars among people. It is also essential to have some cigar samples with you. Luca showed one to Matthew. Tell me more, Matthew asked, and Luca with his sister plunged into memories. I came to the store, Luca began his story, and asked the shop assistant if they have our cigars, among other products. I told her that I borrowed them from yesterday when I was visiting my best friend. I also said that those cigars were the best in my life. The shop assistant said that I was the second person asking for them. Olivia visited the same store before me. The shop assistant took a photo and said that she would like to reach the producer of cigars, to reach us. Right after that, we were distributing business cards at the entrance to a local college. Olivia continued. And it is also an interesting story. I was crying something like, a new kind of cigar orgasm. Don't pass by. Yes, yes, Luca laughed, and two students decided to try the product. To be sure that it was really special. They both looked like junkies. We took the guys by the arms and led them to the local landmark, the old abandoned residence, to try the product. We took one more box of cigars and continued our work. We were near the rehab when two young men asked us to show the product. Olivia made a pause for few seconds. Continue, baby. Matthew was a little bit inspired by the story. I will, Luca smiled. Two men asked to show cigars, but they were not interested in buying them at all. They began to fight with us. He showed a blue mark under his eye. Oh, my God. Matthew was surprised. Yes. And they robbed us, you know, it was like an episode of the horror. Olivia said with expression. While the action took place at the garage, not far from the rehab, I got a wonderful idea and closed the garage with the remote control. Luca seemed to be proud of himself. I continued fighting and returned the box with our magical product. I took a weapon and was ready to kill them when one of those fucking asses stopped me. The fat one told me that he was a sales manager in a big tobacco company. He was ready to help us in increasing our sales. Why was he interested? Does the sales expert not have enough work? Matthew looked with the share of uncertainty. Sure. Because his company was declared bankrupt. And we didn't mind about it. Olivia drank some water and continued the story. His telephone was full of numbers of wholesalers. It didn't take him too much time to call them, and he made one deal and one more. I have never seen such professionals in my life. Really. At some point in time, I even thought that I could begin some relationship with such an enterprising man, but he looked too ugly for me. Continue talking about money, girl. You do already have two dicks. Do you really need one more? Matthew laughed. Mind your own business. It is only my decision. I can have as many men as I want in my bed. Olivia screamed. It is not the topic of our dialogue. And I want to continue talking about money. He called one company after another. And in the end, he earned $5,000 for us. $5,000. Do you know how much is it? It is more than your ass costs. Honestly, he also took a commission. Isn't it fair? I don't think so. He took only $1,000, and the rest is here. I do know how money smells now. Luca looked happier than ever. $4,000 damned dollars. Matthew said, smiling, looking at his friends. Unfortunately, capitalism is the solution. Luca says, looking at Olivia. End.